Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
What's up, BSers?
What's up, peeps?
Fred, Jeremy, Scott, Ryan, James and Drew all in the house tonight.
You just gonna skim over that?
Oh, yeah. I guess I should
Skim
formally
over
do this,
Jeremy
right?
Conn's in the house. Like,
Special night, man. Special guest, big guest, 105.7 The Fan's own Jeremy Conn joining us on the show tonight. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love that Fred said, hey, man, you worked this morning. You worked 4 hours. You got up at 4:30. Would you like to come in and do a few more hours?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, it sounds great. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm happy to be here because we talked about this a long time ago, but when I'm doing nights and then even sometimes with afternoons, it would have been really difficult to make something happen.
Yeah, Jeremy and I go back a long ways, man, to our AA days, and I'm not talking Alcohol Anonymous days. I'm talking Arrow Acre days, right? For you Middle River fans out there, you know what I'm talking about.
I lived on lived in three different houses on right elevator, and then we were just talking about it before.
Yeah.
We used to jump into your backyard.
My dad would chase you.
Your dad would get pissed at us, but no, it was good times, man. Growing up there.
Yeah, man, and you've come a long way from delivering pizzas and getting your car audio installed at Circuit City, man. I used to do that for you back in the day too, man. It's been a long journey, but here you are on the morning show, doing the big bad morning show now.
Yeah, and it's funny, going back to delivering pizzas. I remember one time, my dumbass. This is how stupid I was. That it was a slow day, and there wasn't much orders coming in. So if we stay at the office or we stay back at the shop, we have to clean.
Right.
So I went out and I decided to get my hair cut. So I come back. I left. I had long hair. I come back and I got my head shaved.
Right.
And my boss is looking at me like, "Where the hell have you been?" Like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh yeah, I got my hair cut real quick. It's like, why am I paying you to get your hair cut?
Right.
That's what happened. I feel like mopping.
That's great. Well, we got a lot to talk about on this week's show. The Ravens free agency starts in a week for the Ravens. Who's staying? Who's going? Who's coming in? Got a lot to answer with that. The Terps have a colossal collapse the last 2 games of the year to close out their regular season. Can they pull it together in time for the tourney? We'll talk a little bit about that. The Angelos family speaking out publicly on 105.7. They got a 2-hour special there with Ken Wyman and Jason Lockenford.
Releasing bits of time. Great interview.
It really is. If you haven't had a chance to go on their website and check that out, you should. Because he speaks very openly, very candidly, and I think he'll help put some Orioles minds at ease, Oriole fan minds at ease.
Maybe.
We'll talk about that. But before we do too much, we do want to remind you, if you've ever been injured at work or in an auto accident and weren't sure who to call, 855-MD-CRASH, the Maryland personal injury attorneys that'll have your back. If you find yourself in an unfortunate situation, and I know I have, give our team at MD Crash a call right away. We all know the cost of medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. It all adds up quickly and can potentially put you in a bad financial place. If you want a team that'll handle your case, big or small, and just give you some peace of mind, save this number now. 855-MD-CRASH. It's 855-632-7274. Be sure to follow them on Facebook for some fun giveaways, including gift cards to some local restaurants. All right, Jeremy, so we're going to talk Ravens. Obviously, this is our most popular segment of the show, so I know we got a lot of tuners or fans out there tuning in now to listen. But before we get into that, you brought probably one of the most special pieces of memorabilia to us tonight as part of why you're here tonight. A special piece of Baltimore, an absolutely priceless piece to add to the Birdland BS studio. Mo Gaba bobblehead, man. This thing is pretty awesome.
Yeah, look, I became really good friends with Mo Gaba, and I tell people that I feel bad for people that didn't get a chance to meet him because it's an absolute game changer, man. And I'm not even kidding when I say this. To see a child like Mo was, I mean, he was 14 years old, and I remember being in the hospital when he was sick for, I think it was the third time battling cancer.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories about him, again, I always do the same thing. Hey, Mo! I do the Three Stooges thing so he knows it's me. And then he'll shout, Jeremy! And want to give me this big hug. But I had a teddy bear that was as big as you or I. I mean,
right.
I'm carrying it through the hallways of Hopkins, and people are like, is that for me? I'm like, shut up. Just let me get by. And I throw it on top of him, and he goes, Mom, something's wrong. It was his 13th birthday. She's like, what's wrong, baby? And he's like, my voice is supposed to be deeper. I'm a teenager now. And so you got to see all the parts of this kid and how special he was. And one of my favorite things about him is when he found out that Trey Mancini had cancer, a lot of people didn't know it at the time because we didn't make it public, but he was dying. Right. Mo was dying from cancer, and they basically said that they couldn't do anything else to help him. So they gave him 10 to 12 weeks to live. And when he heard Trey had cancer, the first thing he wanted to do was call him and make sure he was okay.
Right.
And it's just like you don't see kids that are built like that.
Action.
No, you don't.
Okay,
so getting these made, these have been the bane of my existence, but also one of the best things that I've done. The street naming, getting him made lieutenant for a day down with the city police where he had sergeants doing push-ups in the back because it was funny. All these things, but like this is something. I mean, you can hit that button and you can hear. I don't know if you can hit the next one. So
that's him, man. It encapsulates everything that Mo was. Ryan's
got the up close for everybody to be able to really see it.
I know everybody out there.
The details on that too, man.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Everybody out there is going to want to pick it up just like we did. Where can everybody find this thing?
So I posted on social media, and forgive me because I don't have it in front of me, but in Glen Burnie this Saturday from I think 9 to 2 at Elks Club or Elks Lodge. It's on the social media page, but if people can't find it, just hit me up or check my Facebook or Twitter, and it's posted on there. So you can pick them up. They're $50, but all the money's going to charity.
That's
all
awesome.
The profit. So it's like, I found out the hard way that you got to figure out when people say a portion of the proceeds, all the profit, there's so many just shady things that go on, but all this money's getting donated to Johns Hopkins Children's Center. And that's one of the reasons, like I told you, I was out hand delivering these just so I can, everyone that I hand deliver, I save about $10 on shipping. Right. So, and that's, cause I'm running out of them on my end, but the guy that's going to be selling them this weekend, there should be about 600, 700 of them left. And then we're meeting for lunch tomorrow and talking about putting in a second order where we'll have them on a website where it'll be a lot easier. We didn't plan this out appropriately, if people can figure that out. So like I'm losing my mind trying to make sure everybody that not only paid for one got one, but everybody that wants one. And the big concern for me was I didn't want them showing up on the secondary market being sold for a couple $100 or whatever. I want everybody I want to oversaturate the market to where it just means something to the people that have them.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and people that's the part with $50. Some people I've seen. $50 for a bobblehead, then you don't want one. Yeah. And you don't know what this means to the people of Baltimore and what he meant to all of us, especially to you. So I personally want to thank you for doing this. I gladly got it over to you and am happy to have one here permanently and to be able to, I have a 4-year-old son. I don't think you saw him when you came in, but I'm happy to be able to tell him the story of Mo and what he meant and what he did. Yeah, and even seeing like my own kids. And so I was at my son's graduation. And they had it at Benji's Drive-In.
Yeah.
And they were like,
that's
nobody.
Cool.
Yeah, it was, because of everything that was going on, we were just happy they could do something. And I was telling the people there, they're like, you can't leave. You got to stay till the end. And my last name begins with a C. And I just looked at the lady and said, as soon as you guys announce my son's name and I take pictures with him and hug him, I'm leaving. And she's like, you can't leave. And I explained to her the situation that I was going to spend the day with him. And she was like, go ahead. And the people are looking at me as I'm leaving like, how the hell is this guy leaving? But ultimately it was important to me to spend all that time with him, and we grew really close. It's hard to explain our relationship because telling people that you fell in love with a 14-year-old boy or a 14-year-old kid, it doesn't sound right. No. But that's actually what happened. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, he stole my heart, and I'm going to continue. And I made him a promise on his deathbed that I would carry on his legacy and make sure his mom was taken care of. So that's what we're in the process of doing. Not to just belabor this thing, but it does mean a lot to me. So I love seeing people's reaction. I love when people get them and they record themselves watching it and send it to me. I gave one I sent them off to Eric DeCosta, Steve Bisciotti, John Harbaugh.
That's awesome.
Ben Powers got one, Bradley and Nikki Bozeman. I'm mailing one out to Buck Showalter, Adam Jones. That's great. A lot of people really wanted them, so I just wanted to make sure that they got them in their hands.
Yeah, well,
that's awesome.
Mo was a huge inspiration to everybody, and everything that you were doing was an inspiration. Man, it's this goes a long way. So if you guys want to get a piece of Mo Gabba memorabilia, make sure you get out there to Glen Burnie. Check out Jeremy's Facebook page and Twitter. He's got all the details and the address for the time to go check that out.
Support the cause.
Yeah, I'm going to share it again this week, so it's up there at the front, so you're not searching through all my gambling BS.
We'll make sure we share it when we see it too.
All right, so free agency officially a week away. Franchise tag deadline came and went today. The Ravens didn't make any moves, didn't end up tagging anybody. My question to you, what I thought was kind of weird, and maybe this has happened before, but I just never paid attention to it. The franchise tag deadline came and went prior to teams knowing what the actual salary cap was going to be. Is that normal?
I don't think it's ever happened. I mean, you see the Saints franchise their safety, and everybody's going, do they know there's a salary cap? Like, right. They don't have any money. How are you franchising? They must think they're going to definitely get a long-term deal done with them and be able to orchestrate that, or maybe they have some cuts on their mind. Because the thing that people have to realize with seeing these guys get franchised, like Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson and
right.
some of the big names that are off the board, even some names that you really didn't expect to get franchised or that they don't necessarily stand out to you, you have a situation where because of the salary cap, I think you're going to see a bloodbath across the league with guys getting cut.
I agree.
And I said this on the show today that, you know, the Ravens have done unbelievably well with street free agents.
Yeah. And
so if you had to choose a place to go on a 1-year prove-it deal and you're a defensive player, or even if you're a guy that's just trying to, you know, get on a team where you have a chance to win, maybe this doesn't look like the place for wide receivers, as a lot of people pointed out, because they're a run-first team. But still, like I still think you'll have some people that want to come here. But ultimately, I think they might be able to get a handful of guys on the cheap to kind of fill some holes. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be starters, but I'm talking about depth, because right now they have the sack daddy, and that's it. They have no pass rushers. Yep. And for everybody that wants a wide receiver, trust me, I'm on board with you. But you have to have some sort of a pass rush.
Well, when you start looking at the numbers of this thing, it really – there's not going to be a lot of money for the Ravens to spend. Right now, they're estimating the Ravens to have like $17 or $18 million in cap space. But that's prior to signing $6 million worth of rookies that you got to signing all your restricted free agents that you got to signing your practice squad guys. All of that's going to cut into that $18 million. So unless you're restructuring deals, re-signing guys, things like that, or making some cuts somewhere, as good as they are in comparison to other teams in the league, they don't have this mass amount of money to be able to bring in these big names, the Allen Robinsons, the Kenny Gallaudays of the world.
That's where you got to have faith in DaCosta, right? We use the term around here, dumpster dive, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody thought you were going to have that you were going to have some of the guys that he's picked up, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and get the value that he got out of them. Some of these guys were sitting on their couches before DaCosta got a hold of them.
Right? Yeah, you know, and look, I love DaCosta. I think he's done a phenomenal job, and he's a very sharp individual as well as far as what he wants to get done and what they have in store. So they're going to look at the money they have to spend, and I think that salary cap's going to go up a ton the following year.
Right.
So, you know, they might be in a perfect situation, but again, you know, the deal that's looming large, which I'm sure we'll talk about Lamar at some point. Yeah. But there's so many different ways to look at it. Like, you'd love to have him on his rookie deal, ride that thing out till year 5 with the player option. I just don't know that it's going to happen, and maybe you have to get that deal done, backload it, give them some money up front, and then finagle for the next couple years and hopefully restructure down the line. They're very good at handling the cap. You just don't want to find yourself in a situation like the Steelers were in. And the Ravens have been there before in salary cap hell, where it's like you got to make some tough cuts. And people have talked about it. Could Brandon Williams be a cap casualty?
Right.
Sure, he could. I hope not. I mean, I think he's ultimately important to what they do, but if they feel like they have enough depth at that position and need to put that money elsewhere, then we're looking at some different things. But Brandon Williams is going to make Patrick Queen a really good player, and he's going to make those linebackers behind him really good. But to me, it's paramount to find a pass rusher, at least one named guy that can go out there and do that dirt and get after the guys.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things, like with Williams, that we talked about, like we talked about it last week or the week before, was the fact that he's a guy that we know there's a difference when he's not on the field. Mm-hmm. We've seen it on a regular basis. So
specifically the run game.
Exactly. And so people say, yeah, he could be a cap casualty. Yeah. But how are you going to fill that hole? And yes, you may be able to fill it in the draft, but here's a guy that's proven in front of you that knows your system, knows what we're hearing is one of the toughest defensive systems in all of football, and he's able to handle his own on against anybody. I don't know that it's worth to say a guy like Williams is a cap casualty to me. I don't think it is, because I don't think it's worth losing him. We see what happens with this defense when he's not there.
To tag on to that, right? We drafted 2 defensive tackles last year in Matabuike and Washington. We saw a little bit out of Matabuike later on in the year. What was your take on those 2 guys this year? Do you think that they're ready to step up in a role if Brandon Williams is cut?
I think they're ready, but is it a I think they're ready to step in and play more downs.
Right.
But are they ready to step in and be? You can't call defensive tackles every down players because you know the difference.
Yeah.
So you get 3rd and long, those guys are going to come off the field.
Right.
You'll take that draw if they want to try to pop out 9 yards on 3rd and 14. More power to you. If they end up breaking one, you tip your cap to them and say, okay, fine, you got us. But being a rotational piece, and that's what happens with a lot of the defensive tackles.
Right.
But when you play those up-tempo teams and you can't get off the field, and they don't let you substitute, that's where herein lies the rub that you're going to need those guys to be out there and be ready to play those type of games. But I've always had confidence in the Ravens. I mean, you think about Brandon Williams, he was a mid-round draft pick.
Right.
Or what, a 3rd rounder. You start looking at some of the other guys that they've had in there, whether it's 3rd to 6th round, plug-and-play guys that have had success. What happens with Derek Wolfe? Do they decide to, there are a lot of interesting things that they could do to try to make this team better. And I really like Calais Campbell. But
there's $6 million they could save by cutting him too, so that's another option.
So there are plenty of options of what they have to do, and I think that's why Eric DeCosta is going to get paid the big bucks because those are very difficult decisions to make. I mean, people treat football like it's chess or checkers. It's not. It's chess. Like you're not only thinking about this year, you're thinking about next year and the year after that, and so many people are concerned about right now, and I think it's okay to do that when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal and you know what your window is.
Right.
But ultimately, it's about staying competitive, and where people go, well, the Ravens shouldn't draft best player available. They need to draft a wide receiver. They need to do this. But ultimately, I mean, think about the times I'm sure you guys were in the boat with me. You wanted O.J. Howard, and they drafted Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah.
I think they made the right decision.
They definitely did.
I mean, we could point at a couple situations where they didn't, but I mean, I think it's really difficult to be a general manager in this league and trying to make those tough cuts because it's better to get rid of a guy too soon rather than too late.
I agree with that.
Well, you talked about Lamar, so let's jump straight into that, right? So we hear through DeCosta today, actually, that he sits there and says the talks have really just started, and there was some back and forth about the talks have started, they're far apart, blah blah blah. Obviously, today we find out. It's just in the beginning, the infancy stages of these talks. We know that Lamar's mom is his agent. She's the one helping to have the conversation. But according to DeCosta today, they haven't even talked numbers. They're just talking about how he's feeling, what he likes, where they see this organization going. So I guess my question to you is, when you look at this, do you think is Lamar going to get a contract? As everybody's calling, Lamar gets a contract like Mahomes. Do you really think he's going to get a contract like Mahomes?
So the one thing about Mahomes' contract is it's actually really team-friendly, and I think there are a lot of agents out there that wouldn't have wanted their player to take that deal because he could have gotten a hell of a lot more money on a shorter-term deal instead of the long-term, and they're able to spread the money out to help out with the team. Ultimately, it all matters who gets paid first because if Lamar gets paid next, then Josh Allen's going to make more money than Lamar. If Lamar doesn't, then it's just how it goes. And sometimes with the players, it's not necessarily – you could look at the number per year. You could look at the signing bonus number. You could look at the guaranteed money, which is a little bit different than just a signing bonus because Pat Mahomes, a good portion of his contract's guaranteed.
Right.
But when you see what Dak got, I'm like, where were the negotiations? Because they were like, these two sides aren't close. And I said it this morning. I said, did Dak say, hey, I want $40+ million? And then Jerry Jones goes $30 million. He goes, no, 40 plus. Okay, 35. No, 40 plus. Okay, we'll go 40. No, 40 plus. 42. In. Like, was that how the negotiation? Because what didn't Dak get? He got the short-term deal that he wanted. He got all the money he wanted.
Yeah.
He got all that guaranteed money. So I don't even know what happened down there. And there's some Cowboy fans that are like, I can't believe we paid that guy that much. Dak is really, really good, but to me, Lamar is the engine here. So for the people that talked about getting rid of him, he can't throw, he can't do this, he's worked his ass off. And I was a guy that didn't want to draft him. He's worked his ass off every single season to get better. I think that there's some, like, when people talk about needing wide receivers, need this, need that, I'm listening to you. You can always get better in those positions. Yeah. I think it's more about the scheme on offense because as far as running the football, they did a phenomenal job. Even when they switched it up last year from the zone blocking schemes and how they went to some of the traps and different things they were doing made ultimate sense. But in the passing schemes, like it doesn't make any sense to have two receivers in the same area or guys that aren't running routes that help each other get open. Like, New England's feasted upon teams with running these legal, illegal pick plays or rub routes, whatever you want to call them. And the advantages in the league are throwing the football. The Ravens can still win, and you're going to hear people say, oh, they need to fix this, need to fix that. They still have a really good team. And in all honesty, I think if we were going to look at the teams right now, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, the three teams that we're all going to circle saying, I think they're going to be there. The big question is, does Indy take a step forward? Can Carson Wentz be better? Do we see Tennessee continue they paid so much money on their defensive side of the ball last year, and they sucked. They were one of the worst defenses in the league. Do we see a Vegas or some other team, Denver, somebody kind of take another step forward to being another team in the mix? Maybe Cleveland, but I think those are the three teams that you're constantly looking at and comparing yourself to.
Yeah. I agree with that. The question that I have with this, and it was kind of interesting about DeCosta's comments today, is that he said Dak's contract doesn't affect Lamar. It doesn't affect, but it's a market, right? Like you said, whoever gets paid first, well, that's the next bar. And now Lamar is going to eclipse that bar. My worry is, and Ryan and I have talked about this ad nauseum, Ryan doesn't think that quarterbacks should be paid that kind of money. And, I almost agree to it to a certain extent, as much as I love Lamar, and you can't let Lamar leave, right? He's your franchise quarterback. He's everything that's made this team competitive again. John Harbaugh almost lost his job prior to bringing in Lamar Jackson, right? $40-some million. That's going to handicap what you can do. And so Eric DeCosta's job becomes that much more important, and his efficiency, especially through the draft, becomes that much more critical to this team's success.
That's the one thing I disagreed, and maybe really? Not with you. I'm talking about with DeCosta. To me, it's a little bit of coach speak, if you will, where he goes, Dak's deal has nothing to do with Lamar. Of course it does, because Lamar can see what he's making. Exactly. And now he knows the bar has been set. So it does have an impact on him. Because I don't think Lamar's going to go, give me something close to Dak, like $5 million less. We'll be good. Yeah, that's not going to happen. This is his first big deal,
right?
And they're going to try to maximize that as much as possible. And there's nothing wrong with it, but that's the going rate for quarterbacks in this league. And I tell people, I said, go back and look at Russell Wilson, who many people consider one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Mm-hmm. They had the Legion of Boom. That defense was outrageous. They were running the football with beast mode, and then you had Russell Wilson back there, and then a kind of a hodgepodge group of wide receivers. They slowly started to get, Russ had to get paid, and then all of a sudden it's goodbye Richard Sherman. Right. By Legion of Boom, all the guys back there, Brandon Browner, Earl Thomas. Eventually, all of them are leaving, and then now you need to rely on the draft to replace those guys, replenish those players, or find some of these street free agents that can really help your team out. And it's not like Seattle's not a good team and going to be a perennial playoff team or in that mix. But are they good enough? Can Russell Wilson carry them to get them back to a Super Bowl with how bad that defense was this year? And so far the answer's been no, and I'm not knocking Russ. I'm just saying it just shows you when you pay a guy top dollar, what can happen to the rest of the roster.
Yeah.
And you have to be a really good drafting team, and ultimately it comes back to the tough decisions. You get two players, like let's say the Ravens were in that position, they paid Lamar, and then now all of a sudden you had, and I know they already signed Ronnie Stanley, but you have Ronnie Stanley and Mark Andrews come up.
Right.
And then now you have to pick which one are you going to keep? And more than likely, it's going to be your left tackle. But what I'm saying is you ultimately have these tough decisions. You go back to the Ravens when they had to figure out were they keeping Suggs or Adalius Thomas. Right. And ultimately they let Thomas walk and kept Suggs. Right decision, but still a very difficult one at the time.
For sure. Well, I think another part of Lamar's success moving forward is obviously going to be keeping him upright, right? So the offensive line is critical to Lamar's success, and this offensive success, the run game success, and Lamar. Obviously, there's the Orlando Brown situation that's going on, and they talked about that. And DeCosta kind of said he understands why Orlando's doing what he do. He related it to something he did. He said he was 6 years old and dreamed about being an NFL GM. So he understands that his father laid this path for him and whatnot. I want to ask you, do you think the Ravens play their hand, play it out, let him play this year and don't make a move, or do you think they end up trading him and getting value?
So the problem is if he walks next year, they're going to get after next year, they're going to get a third-round pick.
Right.
So now whatever you get has to be better than that, and you have to make sure it's substantially better because, you're a better team with him and a comp third pick than you are of getting a second-round pick and not having him, or a second and a third. Is that enough? Because I ultimately think you're going to want a first-round pick, and then you're looking at some of the teams. Would Indy give up one of their first-round pick, or they talked about Jacksonville? Would they give up that second-round pick or one of their? They have two first-round picks.
Well, they just franchised their left tackle today too.
Yeah. So then you're looking at it. What happens with that? And is Orlando Brown set on saying I have to be a left tackle? Or can he be a right tackle and get paid close to left tackle money and be happy with it? Here's the dilemma and what we don't know, because when you start tweeting out random stuff, it's like, the hell is he talking left tackle? And then of course everybody jumps on. It's like, well, they should have kept Orlando Brown and let Ronnie Stanley walk. No, it's easy to say that after Stanley got hurt, but we didn't know that was going to happen.
Right.
So that to me is problematic. But you know what the bar is. You know what you have to get back in return to make it worth your while. The one caveat with this is, how does Orlando Brown react if you're bringing him back to play right tackle? Does he suck it up and do what he's supposed to and play out the season and then see what happens at the end of the year?
Or does it become a problem?
Yeah. And I ultimately, he's a really good kid and
smart guy.
Yeah. And look, it runs in the family. You could see he showed this year he can play left tackle.
Oh, 100%.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And they're better this year in a window where you're trying to win the Super Bowl of having him at right tackle and having Stanley at left tackle. And by the way, they released today that Stanley had a second surgery. And they expect him to be ready by the beginning of the year, but what if he's not? And then all of a sudden you traded Orlando Brown, and now you're like, who the hell's blocking?
Harb's comments today on that was the fact that, if Ronnie's not back, well, and he made a joke about it. We were looking at his face as he's saying it. We got a guy that's a left tackle, and he can play left tackle well.
Right.
It's like
I just don't. I personally don't think you move on him unless you get a first round pick, and obviously it's going to be a late round pick if you do. I think the biggest challenge is that this draft is loaded with offensive line help, especially at the tackle position, that I wonder if teams are willing to make that move for somebody who is, I get it, he's young, he's proven, he's been a Pro Bowl left and right tackle at this point, but he's also at the end of his rookie deal. Like, he's going to, require
and you can't pay all that money to bookend tackles either.
Exactly.
No. It's just an extremely difficult thing to do, and you'd love to have it. It's a nice problem to have that you have two talented guys, and Zeus Jr., Orlando Brown, whatever, like slides in the draft, and you're able to get him where you did because he had a terrible combine. But yeah, ultimately, it's because I think they should keep him, but you have to sit down and have a conversation with him, like, hey, are you going to be, kind of the good soldier this year if we don't trade you, or are you going to cause problems? Like, we're trying to win a Super Bowl, and you can be a part of that. You have a great year, and you can get paid. But again, what happens to him if he plays this year at right tackle? He gets hurt.
Right.
Is he going to get paid the same amount of money, or is he got to come back and do one of those 1 year, 2 year prove it deals?
But on the flip side, if Stanley, because of that second surgery, doesn't come back, then we have you as left tackle. You have to be willing to play either, and you're going to be a part of something that's competitive, or we can trade you potentially to a team that's not competitive and trying to get there, and good luck to you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the hard part. This is what we talked about in earlier on about it being chess, that you're sitting here looking at all your moves. Now, if somebody comes in and says, hey, we're going to give you a first-round pick, I think you have to take it.
Right.
I mean, you got a guy for one more year or a first-round pick that you can lock up for 5. Could you find 4 years and the team option, of course, but could you find somebody there, or does that flexibility? I said this before. What if you trade, your Orlando Brown for one of the back end first round picks? Could you then take 2 of those first round picks and move up and go get your future wide receiver, or a pass rusher that you covet? Who knows what they like at this point? And it's going to be a really weird year because no combine. You got all these pro days. You got to watch a ton of film. And I said this earlier today that I think the Ravens are better suited to take advantage of the situation, but I always like them with more information because I think they're one of the smartest organizations in the league, and they take advantage of those situations. Even if the draft picks don't work out, they trust they trust their process.
Right. So you mentioned pass rush. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball real quick, right? Obviously, this has been an area that a lot of fans have been wanting to see addressed for a while, especially when people look at pass rush, they're just looking at sack totals, right? We know some of these guys, Matt Judon, bring more than just sack totals. Obviously, if we're just basing off sack totals, he wouldn't be getting paid what he's about to get paid. But the Ravens are in a spot where they could be very depleted at pass rush, right? I mean, you've got the Yannick, who you traded for. You traded a 3rd-round pick for him. Matt Judon coming off the franchise tag. They obviously didn't franchise him again. Both of these guys are going to get paid $15 million a year north. You can pretty much X them off the Ravens, at least in my opinion. I don't see
McPhee's a free agent too, and he wants to come back here. But again, he's probably a guy that you might want to play 12 to 18 plays a game. If that, depending on
he's a rotational
what your
guy
depth.
For sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that he can't be effective, but if you're putting him out there on an everyday basis at his age, the likelihood of him getting hurt or breaking down, I think, increases.
Right, 100%. And I think the one guy out of this mold that I think, one, the Ravens can afford, 2, I think has the biggest upside, is the guy that we've seen the most, it's been slow, but we've seen the most growth over the last couple of years, and that's Tyus Bowser. Mm-hmm. They're saying there's rumors out there that his market's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $7 million a year, is what I'm hearing. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but to me, if you can get Tyus Bowser to stay for $5 to $7 million, that deal needs to be done tomorrow.
There's no question. So he's the guy that most teams are going to covet because of the price. Okay,
right.
So from the things that I read, like New England's really interested in Tyus Bowser, and they want to bring him in. But again, kicking the tires on a guy that could take that leap forward, because we've seen that from it. The Ravens had to make that decision with Zadarius Smith,
right,
and we're seeing him flourish in Green Bay. They made the decision with Pernell McPhee. He goes to Chicago. He was okay there. Comes back. And we've seen it happen to other players where they've flamed out or just had bad luck, got hurt, whatever it may be. But The point is that you have to have pass rushers. And right now, statistically, on your roster, you have one guy. And maybe Ferguson takes a step forward. We've seen this happen before, but I don't know that you can rely on that with a team that you think can go to the Super Bowl. And there's no depth either. So when people are like, oh my God, I want Allen Robinson, I want this guy, I want that guy, you need to bring in Kenny Galladay. I hear you. Like, I'd love to see it happen.
This isn't the MLB. You don't have unlimited funds.
But you have to figure out something with your pass rush. It's like we just saw it in the Super Bowl, and everybody talks about the copycat league, and that's true to an extent. But what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had is very impressive. That front seven was outrageously good. They get to face a Kansas City team that's down 3 offensive linemen, and they just tore them up. I mean, and if you watched them, I go back, and this is what I was telling everybody when it came to the Super Bowl. I said, bet Tampa Bay. They're winning the game, and, oh, you're crazy. Kansas City's a better team. Mahomes isn't losing. I didn't think they wouldn't score a touchdown.
Right.
But when you're coming in and you watch Tom Brady throw 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter and give the ball back to the MVP of the league, and he didn't score, like that's insane. You can see how good that team is, especially up front. And I had some concerns about their secondary, but you're going to see more and more teams try to emulate what they did with that pass rush up front, and that's the way to do it. It's not having great corners is one thing, but the corners can only do so much because you're putting your hands on them past 5 yards. Here's a flag. Oh, that's pass interference.
Exactly.
You want your guys up front to be able to get to the quarterback before those guys get open.
And to that point, the longer those guys have to cover the guys, more likely those guys are getting open. More likely you're getting a foul because they're trying to hold a guy because he makes a move to get in an open space. We see it all the time, and that's what needs to happen. That's where I think the Ravens kind of had that success. In my opinion, I almost think that the Bucs emulated that front off of what the Ravens have been trying to do. And they just had more success with it. And that's what it comes down to. I can only imagine if we would have had a front seven like that and had the coverage that we have in our secondary currently.
Right.
We'd have been the Super Bowl winners as well.
Just think if Jason Pierre-Paul had 2 more fingers. That's
at least 2 more sacks.
He's got that hand from Total Recall that he could put up there and then give the Martians the air.
Banana hands.
But no, I mean, you look at it and they signed Shaq Barrett away, and then you put in Ndamukong Suh, and Suh's another guy that when you talk about guys up the middle that can create pressure, 100%, but can create pressure up front in that middle and still help out in the run game. Yeah. Like he's a dominant player, much like Aaron Donald.
You have to account for him at all times,
right?
Even at this age. So, but not to totally get off topic, but the point is with pass rush. And I know everybody, I think you take it for granted. And last year, people were like, oh, the Ravens went cover 0 and they're fine to do that. And you leave those guys out on an island long enough, you're going to get picked apart eventually. And that's what's going to happen if they don't have any sort of pass rush.
Right. And I agree. And I think, like I said, I just can't see them shelling out because of the cap situation. I can't see them shelling out the money for Judon or Yannick. And Yannick, I'll be honest with you, in the little bit of time that he was here, I just don't think he was a right fit for this system. I think he goes somewhere else. He fits in the system there and he flourishes. It's just he wasn't the right player at the right time for us as far as just sack numbers, because that's what everybody's looking for. He was. But there were a couple of names that hit the market today, and I wanted to get your take on, like Justin Houston, right? This is the guy that signed for just over $11 million with the Colts last year on a 1-year deal. Still, obviously, he's got a good amount left in the tank, and if you could get him around an $11 million deal, if Judon and Yannick are looking at $15 to $18 million a year, that's value there, right? Hassan Reddick, I think he's going to get paid somewhere. I mean, 12 and a half sacks.
Yeah, he led the Cardinals in sacks last year, mainly because Jones was out, Chandler got hurt, but he was still really good. And another kid that when he was drafted out of Temple, like everybody was talking about the Ravens being interested in him. So I'm wondering maybe they go back and kick the tires on him.
Right.
But there's a handful of guys that are out there, but it's finding not only the right value, the right fit, and then we have to look at the way that the contracts are structured, because everybody will look at it like some guys sign 2-year deals. And we all know they're 1-year deals. Like they're going to be cut after that year unless they just play out of their mind. And that team's like, we got this guy to mint, so we'll keep him at his price tag.
Right. Well, do you think because of this cap situation that you're going to see a lot of these guys signing these 1-year deals, these prove-it type deals, so that way when the cap does increase, they can sign these mega deals?
I think you're going to see a bunch of that. And maybe the Ravens are hoping that's the case, that they can bring in a couple of vets that'll fit in. And look, this is a real easy defense to fit into. Not to say that it's not complex, but I'm just saying you're surrounded by so much talent that you come here, you could flourish.
Right.
Like if you put Yannick, he stunk up the joint this year. I remember one game where I'm like, okay, that's the guy I thought they were going to get. And other than that, I don't remember saying much about him. Like, even as far as like everybody wants to look at sacks, but pressures, hits, all those things matter, especially with a ball hawk defense with the secondary they have. But if you're going to bring in some guys and have them kind of get after the quarterback, I do believe you'll see that bloodbath. You're going to see a bunch of guys get cut that you didn't expect. Like, damn, why'd they cut him?
Right.
They got to figure out how to get under the cap and make some things work, especially with draft picks and all the other stuff. So there'll be a couple of names out there, and we'll have to see if they're interested in signing a one-year deal with the Ravens.
You got half the league right now that's overspent on the cap, so there's definitely going to be some casualties.
The question is with that, though, is how many dumpster dives, as we like to say, come out of that? Because guys want to stay in the league. They want to find a team, and you're going to be able to get them on value because they've been cut, and maybe somebody else isn't able to pick them up.
It's funny. I always joke about the Ravens breaking out. You guys talk about dumpster dive, and I say break out the coupons. Like
my mom did it. It's super fresh, double to the dollar.
It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to double coupon A.J. Green. Bring his dusty ass on.
Right.
Yeah. Like, people were talking about some of these vets, and Carlos Dunlap gets cut last night. I'm hanging out. I'm out at a dinner with my wife, and Rob Long actually ends up showing up. So it was kind of like a weird thing. And it was, they're sitting there. It's just, oh man, Carlos Dunlap got cut. And I said, Ravens already got their coupons out. Like, because it doesn't hurt if one of those guys ends up becoming a depth piece for you, and he's kind of a shell of his former self. You need to have bodies and guys that have played in this league. So ultimately, that's why I think some of these vets are going to be important for the Ravens, that you just can't rely on going out to the draft. Because when, for example, Jalen Ferguson's on this roster,
right.
We were hearing about him, small school guy, but can get after the quarterback. They really like him and thinks he pops on tape. But when he came here, he was fine getting after the quarterback, but he never kept containment. So when they played the 49ers, go back and watch when they played the 49ers and they beat them in that rainy day here in Baltimore 2 years ago. Mostert went off because they were doing the sweeps and the stretch play on the outside.
He couldn't get out to cover him.
And he couldn't get out there. He wasn't keeping the containment, and he was busting his ass the whole game. And that's why you saw him get yanked, and then they had to reevaluate. And that's why guys like Jarrett Johnson, who weren't – he might get you your 5.5 sacks a year or whatever.
Great edge setter.
Set the edge, and he let the linebackers do their thing. So I think those guys are ultimately important.
Well, put your Eric DeCosta hat on for a second, right? And let's look at this. You just explained the importance of pass rush, right? And we obviously this team's going to be depleted at that spot. If it means cutting a guy like Calais Campbell, cutting a guy like Brandon Williams, saving that cap money to go out there and get one of these quote-unquote more elite pass rushers, are you making that move knowing that you've got a couple of young guys in Madubuike and Washington? You just brought, or you're going to be bringing back Jelly, right? Josina Anderson, which I don't even know who the fuck she works for anymore at this point, but she reported that the Ravens had worked out a one-year deal with him. Are you doing that? Are you cutting a Williams? Are you cutting a Calais Campbell to save that cap and go out and get the pass rush?
I would do it in a heartbeat to go get the pass rush, because to me that's you can find cheap plugs in the middle, and not that they're going to be Brandon Williams, not that they're going to do his job as well as he does, or it's just that easy. We'll just find somebody to stuff the run. It's not that simple. But I think those guys come in a little bit cheaper than what it's going to be. The guys it's touching the ball and touching the quarterback.
Right.
That's what you want. You get paid to do those two things. So I would ultimately say that. And then the other interesting name that we haven't even talked about, and his off the field stuff still pending, is Von Miller.
Yeah.
What happens with Von Miller? Because this would be a place I think he would love to come play.
Yeah.
Do the Ravens look at the whole he said she said thing going on, and what the answer is with did he do what was that they stated he did and all this? That's the problem, because since the Ray Rice incident, everything's been it's kind of suspect of what they would do and who they bring in. But there's no doubt about Von Miller's talent.
Right.
And is he a guy, especially this year, that would want to come in for a one-year prove-it deal on a defense that has a chance to make some noise?
I think they would consider that. The only hesitation I think they would have is Ray Rice, one, and then two, the experience that they had with Earl Thomas, right? They bring in another guy who had some character issues. And obviously,
does Von Miller have a brother?
He might be next to him. I don't know. We'll see. No,
I think he does own a car wash, though.
Yeah, but that's even another part that we're not talking about that's going to factor into the cap potentially this year, right? Is that they're still trying to work out the Earl Thomas situation. That's a couple $1 million that might come off this cap number if it comes against the Ravens.
That's a huge grievance. And what's taking so long to figure out?
I know.
It's just absurd. The NFL can figure this out and let them know what's going on and make some sort of, and maybe this is something else where we talk about courts, and maybe it can come down the line. If they can't figure it out now, then knock that money off the cap and then punish them down the line if you feel like they owe him money, whatever it may be. I mean, clearly the Ravens would love that if that were to happen this year, but who knows what they'll do. But I'm just I'm spitballing here, throwing out some names. When Miller's name came up, ultimately I'm going, man, that's one that pops, because he's a guy that even if he's slowed down and he's not the same player, he still creates that pressure that you need where they're going to take a back or a tight end to chip him from time to time and give help, and that allows the other guys to be better. And that's what we talk about when people bring up Aaron Donald, and see people are like, oh my God, why are they giving him the defensive play? Because he requires double and triple teams almost every single game. He allows everyone else to be better.
And I think that's something that people don't give Brandon Williams enough credit for, is because he is one of those guys that requires the double team, the triple team. He might not put up the stats. You might not see him in the stat sheet, but he's a guy that hoggles up 2 or 3 bodies at a time.
I'll tell you where you see him on the stat sheet is against the run game.
Yeah.
When you have a top tier runner that's able to be held like this year, obviously going against Derrick Henry, some of it was the scheming. You were able to hold Derrick Henry this year, more so than you have in years past. And a large portion of that is due to Brandon Williams and what he brings to this defensive front. And I think that's, we talked about what do you do? How do you handle it? So the question, you said, if you got to give up Campbell or you got to give up a Williams, you could. The question is, you got to have one of those guys there, in my opinion, right now, at least during this transition phase. The question starts to become, who's more impactful, Calais Campbell or Brandon Williams?
Calais is more versatile. Yeah. You can line him up at pretty much anywhere.
Agreed. But Brandon Williams, we see even this year what happens when he's not in that lineup.
Yeah. Against the Cleveland Browns specifically.
Yeah, I know Ryan's been itching over there. So he's afraid of getting Brandon Williams and having Nick Chubb run down our throat.
I mean, the truth be told is you don't want to get rid of either one of them. I mean, let's be honest. But the thing with the Ravens, and they've done this time after time, is found those guys second, third, fourth, fifth round that have become that's what Brandon Williams was. He became that. If you want to go back in the pantheon of the guys they drafted, I mean, Haloti Ngata was a first round pick that they moved up one spot to get from the Cleveland Browns. That swap, they drafted Haloti Ngata and the Browns drafted Cameron Wembley. It's like, what the hell are you guys thinking? I mean, they got an extra draft pick, which they probably blew it on a terrible player, but they can find those guys to help stop the run. But let's be honest, this league has become a pass-heavy league. And we watched the Buffalo Bills came in and ran the ball one time against the Ravens.
Yeah.
One time.
Yep.
That's it. They just said, screw it. We know we can't run against you. We're going to come out and throw, and we'll constitute this short passing game, or we'll have Josh Allen take off and run on occasion. And I'm not saying, look, that's not a recipe for success. What New England did when they had struggle running they struggled to run the football is they constituted with the short passing game. Like, here, boom, right off the line. There's 3 yards. So here's a little pick pop or, pop pass to the tight end, and you set that up. And you would see that all the time with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, and even when Hernandez was gone, and they still did that with other tight ends that came in. And, it was just something that you can do to kind of constitute that instead of having the run game. But I don't think most teams are just going to fully abandon it. The Buffalo Bills felt comfortable doing it and felt that was the best way to win. They get a little lucky with a pick six, which the game could have been tied. But again, it was a great play. The guy ran it back, and that was the ball game.
Yeah. Well, all right, going back to the offensive side of the ball, I know you touched on this a little bit, and obviously the big thing out there that everybody wants to talk about is seeing this offense take the next step, especially in the pass game, right? So everybody's clamoring for the big-name wide receivers, and it's just not going to happen, 1, because they're getting gobbled up as far as franchise tag goes, 2, because the Ravens just can't afford it. But what's your take overall on this wide receiver core as it stands right now? Obviously, Willie Snead, with some of the tweets that he's out there, obviously he's going to be moving on. You draft guys like Devin Duvernay and James Prochet, 2 guys that had great hands coming out of college, right? We saw a little bit of sample size of Devin Duvernay, but James Prochet's rookie season was basically a wash. They didn't really use him much at all. Yeah. Right, exactly. Do you see these guys, because Harbs did make a point to say in his presser today, he thinks that they take a big jump year 2. Do you think that they're enough to make this team competitive from a wide receiver standpoint, or do you think that they need to add more from the outside?
I mean, it doesn't, in my opinion, I'm a little bit different than other people. I think it's more schematically what they do with their passing game. Like having route concepts that make sense. Right. Having 2 guys running tandem routes and to get them open, whether it's a guy running an out and then the next time you pump fake the out and he runs the wheel route or the up on that, or ways to get the ball in Marquise Brown's hands, allowing him to stretch the field, go down the field and make plays. The other thing that they could do, and we talked a lot about it too, is what about kicking the tires on somebody like Zach Ertz and you go back to your double tight end set,
about that too,
which really worked. I think Duvernay slides right in, and when he was drafted to be Willie Snead's replacement. There was no doubt about it when they drafted if you looked at Duvernay in college, the 2 really good years he had, he was in the slot. The other 2 years were okay, and he played outside. He's an inside receiver.
Right.
If they go out and they kick who was it yesterday? They brought up Juju Smith-Schuster on our show. Like, would you be interested in him?
No.
It depends. It depends what it costs. But again, he's a slot guy. You're going to work him out. It's not that he can't play outside. He's more successful in the slot.
Right.
And is this the right system for him? Is this you know what I mean? Like, there's all different types of things to look at. And again, cost is going to be a huge factor. Like, I would love to see them get a guy, and I'm not saying it has to be this guy, but a guy like Corey Davis.
Yeah.
You get a big body guy, decent hands, and you need somebody like that, especially when you get down in the red zone. So it's not just Mark Andrews. But if you watch what teams did defensively against the Ravens, they were double teaming Mark Andrews, and then they would shadow Marquise Brown and dare somebody else to beat him. Willie Snead had a couple of games where he went off. One was the Steelers game, I think, where he had a really good game.
Yep.
But, and I don't think it's a big deal not having the number one, the go-to guy, because Lamar will spread the ball around. He doesn't care who catches it. But I do think to see a guy like Mark Andrews excel, you have to bring in another pass-catching tight end.
Agreed.
And I don't know that Nick Boyle does all the dirty work. So I think they find that guy, and I know they just re-signed one of the other. It's just
Tomlinson.
Yeah, I mean, Lakin's. It's just another guy to me. It's another body.
Yep.
It's depth, and then even some of those guys. It doesn't surprise me to see them sign a guy for $1 million, and then all of a sudden they get in the training camp and they're like, I kind of like this rookie we drafted. We can save some money. Let's cut him.
Right.
It happens all the time.
So you mentioned Corey Davis, right? It's a guy that I like too, and you mentioned his size specifically. So we've got a guy like that on the roster right now, in Miles Boykin. My question is, with him, do you think he is wrong player, wrong system? Do you think he's not very talented? Or do you think he goes – because a lot of people, honestly, they draw the comparisons to Chance Claypool up in Pittsburgh, and he's obviously done really well up there. Do you think Miles Boykin can have that kind of success if he's in the right system or what?
I just don't think he's as explosive as a Chase Claypool, and what makes him a difference maker is he's constantly catching big plays.
Right.
Big plays down the field. Like, I think Boykin's okay, but I think he's another guy that would fit better into a system where he would have a chance to flourish with one of these pocket passing quarterbacks. And I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to twist my words and that Lamar can't be that guy, but make no mistake about it. If the Ravens throw the ball more than 25 times, then they haven't executed their game plan.
Right.
Something went wrong in those type of games. And because they want to come out, run the football, and then the run is supposed to set up the pass for them. That's why I don't understand why they're almost, I'm not saying every pass play should be a play action, but with how well you run the football, damn near should be.
But I guess the question is, this is the big thing that's been brought out is how much of that comes down to, like you were talking about, kind of the scheming and how they're using these guys. How much of that is some of the things that we've heard out of, some of the players, chiming in and chirping, is that it's too simple. Steve Smith even kind of came out.
He went a little far, but he's not that far off.
Right. And I think we all see it. He just said it in Steve Smith terms. It's easy to say it. But, that's part of the problem. We've been saying that the scheming and the use is a big portion of that because these guys, you do have guys that you see talent in them. You wouldn't have drafted them if you didn't see talent in these guys. Are you really giving the opportunity when you're running these what seem to be basic routes and you're not getting them the ball?
So it's funny to me, and again, I'm the king of bad analogies, but you have a son, you have a young son, you want to teach him to hit a baseball. So the first thing you're going to do is you're probably not going to come up and just pitch to him. You're probably going to put the ball on a tee, right?
Right.
Then you get the tee. You're not going to come up and throw fastballs at him left and right and see if he can hit it. Come on, kid, what are you doing?
Get in there and beat somebody.
You need to set these guys up for a chance to succeed. And I'm not telling you that their thought process is infantile. Like they can't think on their own and pick up stuff. But you really need to put them in positions to succeed. And that's one of the things I loved about John Gruden. And I'll go way, way back. When Gruden got traded to the Buccaneers, that's such a stupid thing to say that your coach got traded.
Right.
When he got traded to the Bucs, remember Michael Pittman was the running back.
Yeah.
He set up combination routes with the running backs and the wide receivers to where Michael Pittman was matched up with linebackers left and right, and he had the flats to himself, and he could make plays. You get him in open space,
right.
And these are pitch and catch things, even at the NFL level. And to me, that's all design. It's all designed to confuse the defense and to get guys open. When I watch this offense, and you go back and you look at it, it's almost like he sits down, he knows what he wants, like from a running scheme. It's beautiful. It's like pass, all right, this guy go here, go there. It's almost like he's just drawing it up, and there's no, there should be some sort of combination. The play in against Tennessee where Lamar threw an interception, and that was Miles Boykin on that route. I don't know what route he was running. First off, it was a god-awful route.
Yeah.
And then, Lamar is supposed to read it with the defender bearing down on him, and here he is. Where is he supposed to go? Because everybody's like, Lamar threw an interception. Well, he hadn't broke out of his route. It wasn't a corner route where Lamar knew to throw it to the pylon. I mean, Kurt Warner broke that thing down beautifully. And then he went to some of the other plays in that same game where you have two receivers that can be covered by one defender because they're in the same area. So if a team's running zone, so like if you play a zone defense, you want to flood an area. You want to flood it so you have more people, like levels, underneath, intermediate, deep.
Yep.
And then they have to pick and choose, and then you should have one guy open. And man-to-man, you want guys moving around. You want to find your mismatches. Sometimes it is those rub routes and things where you can get guys open. I just don't see enough of that. And I'm not saying you got to abandon what you do offensively, like this West Coast offense, but throwing the ball underneath, getting the ball in guys' hands. Like, why aren't we doing more of that? Like, I just don't understand it. And, they're not going to come out and criticize Greg Roman publicly. Lamar kind of did it, threw some shade his way at one point. Yeah. But it's very telling to me when you see former players, guys, like, we all thought Willie Snead was going to be gone, but he had some cryptic messages on Twitter. Where
100%
like,
he did.
Man, why is he like? And he loved it here. He loved being here. But it's just BS. Like when you watch these route concepts, they're so trivial. Like something has to be done. And I'm okay with Harbaugh coming out and saying, "Oh, we know what we're doing. We like what we're doing," and then going behind the scenes and saying, "What the hell are we doing?"
Right.
Like that needs to happen.
Well. The additions that they made on the coaching staff, right? They bring in T. Martin as, I guess they announced him today as the wide receiver coach, right?
They clarified,
They clarified his position title. And then they bring in a guy like Washington, right? Who's also going to be a pass game coordinator at this point.
Pass game specialist.
Sorry. Totally different.
Well, remember when Greg Roman came in, he was the run game specialist. It's almost like he was looking at Marty Morningwig running in place. Like, run the damn ball, Marty.
Right, exactly. Do you think these additions are Harbaugh and Bisciotti pushing the envelope on Roman to change, or do you think Roman's going to just continue to go MO?
No, I think there has to be some change, and I'm okay with them not publicly saying anything because they're not going to try to trash one of their own guys. But anybody that's been watching this game, like when Kurt Warner doesn't like taking shots at anyone, when he started talking about it, you're like, it opened your eyes. Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Steve Smith. I opened the door for Steve Smith one time down in New Orleans. He was with the Panthers when the Ravens were playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He mean mugged the hell out of me. I was like, damn, dude. All I did was hold the door for you. Like, you think I was looking at his wife or something? He's just like staring at me. I'm like, he just has a chip on his shoulder. But and again, nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But the point is, like, he'll come out and trash anybody however he feels. It just that's how he is.
He says it was on his mind.
No question. But when you look at the concepts and the route tree and what they have designed, like sometimes I'm watching going, why is that guy running that route? Or why don't we have, if you're going to go twins left and right and you're going to go four wide, these guys should be running some sort of combination, one guy helping the other guy get open. Or even if you have a guy that's a decoy that's running off the safety to open up something on the opposite side of the field. I mean, there's a lot of things there.
Yeah. Right. No,
I just don't see it in this offense.
100% agree with you. So I guess before we get you out, I know you said you got to be out. You got to get up before the freaking roosters get up in the morning at this point, right, for work. But we do want to go to a social media shout out there, Ryan. All right, Ryan, so who's been out there on social media, and what kind of questions do we got for Jeremy?
We got a lot of people interacting today. We got to start off with Buffalo Chuck, Carlozo, Clyde Mamu, Jamal Caldwell, Kamal Porter, Dominic Henson, Nick Short, Dwayne Jones, Brandon Hawk, Sherry Reedy, Chrissy Hewitt, Garnett West, Craig Zero, Andrew Skura, Eric Wiseman, Terrence H., and Troy Hayes.
Nice.
It's a lot of pressure getting the top three questions. So,
give us three.
Joe Carloza's been trying to win that. Let me tell you. I think he's put in 50 questions.
I like it.
All right, so question one, I'm going to go with Chuck here. We're going to go a little bit more into the wide receivers. Galladay or Will Fuller? How much would they cost to come to Baltimore? Is it even an option?
I like Will Fuller a lot. I think he's a better option, even coming off the suspension. I think he brings something that this team could use. He doesn't have the size that Galladay does. I just think there's a team out there. So there's been a lot of talk about Galladay's separation, that he doesn't create a ton of separation. He has, in Detroit, and a guy clearly can get downfield, but he high points the ball, and he wins those battles. Much like when Flacco made the run to the Super Bowl, we saw Bolden do it.
Right.
And Galladay's often been hurt, so is Will Fuller. So those are the two things. Like, I brought up Will Fuller as a name that I was really intrigued by because – you have more speed. We didn't expect them to draft Marquise Brown. Remember when they did that, we were talking about all the other big receivers. Yep. They're going to get Metcalf. They're going to get A.J. Brown, which now people are like, Wish they'd have got one of those.
Yeah, right.
But,
Either one.
But I still think Hollywood has a chance to be really good and valuable, but they went the speed route. I'd love for him to kick the tires on Will Fuller. I think he might wind up in a place like Green Bay or somewhere and try to make a run there. But of those two, I would love to have Galladay. I think Will Fuller makes sense because the dollars will make sense.
Sure.
All right, Garnett West. I was with my second question here. Garnett says, with the 27th overall pick, Jeremy Conn selects.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
It's so hard at the back end of the draft. Like, I saw Terrace Marshall Jr., his name around there, the wide receiver from LSU, which I'd be fine with. You know, part of me would rather see them take one of the interior linemen if they slide and see if you have a plug-and-play guy. And, you know, if you're looking around the league, like the Patriots made a big move, but they're going to let one of their guards walk that's played center. Would the Ravens be interested in kicking the tires on him? What's the price going to be? It's going to be a really weird offseason just because of teams that are hamstrung by the salary cap. And that's why I said earlier, I think you're going to see an absolute bloodbath as far as cuts go across the league. And maybe we see more draft day trades than we've seen in years past.
So staying with offensive line really quickly, the question I have for you is obviously at the center position, it's been a disaster, right?
You just saved Joe Carlozo because that was one of his 2 questions.
Was it really?
You go for it. I'll give him that second question.
All right. Between Skura and even Macari towards the end of the year, it was an absolute disaster, right? They bring in this undrafted guy, Colon Castillo, played in one of the toughest defenses, played against one of the toughest defenses, and actually held his own, did a really good job in there. But there hadn't been a whole lot of chatter from the Ravens about him. And the Ravens are usually pretty good at kind of covering up their diamonds in the rough. Do you think that they have faith in a guy like Colon Castillo, or are you looking for another replacement?
I think they want to see more from him. Yeah. I think so from what I heard, they like what they saw from him.
Right.
But they weren't going to trust him in the postseason and put that pressure on him right away.
Makes sense.
To be the guy, especially when some of the other guys got healthy. But the thing that a center needs to, like, when you see a wide receiver and they're like, can't catch, like, that's, to me, that's a red flag.
Stay away.
A center that can't snap, that's a huge red flag. Like, what the hell was going on? And then
that's called a guard.
Yeah. Well, they had the one game where they brought it up to Harbaugh, and he's like, yeah, the weather was bad. Wasn't bad for the other center. He snapped the ball and had the damn fumbles, you know? But yeah, no, I think ultimately they need to shore up the interior of that line. And when I say interior, I mean center. Because I think guards they're fine with. But they keep trying to move these guys inside and out, and none of those guys really they didn't play well at that position.
I didn't think Macari was bad at guard, and he actually came out of college as a guard. I think he could play guard in the NFL. I just don't like him as a center. You know,
so that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't like any of them as centers.
Yeah, agreed. What else we got, Ryan?
All right, well, question 3, we'll go with Joe Carlozo, his other question then.
All right.
Do the Terps make the tournament if they lose on Thursday night to MSU?
I still think so. And initially, before I saw Joe Lunardi's projections, like he has them 90% in.
Yeah, and a 10 seed right now.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm looking at it going, they're not very good, but I guess, you know, outside of if we wanted to go top 14, top 15 teams, and when I say not very good, I'm talking about in the context of just looking at how everything's gone this year. We didn't see them, you know, scratching the top 25 as much as you'd like. I don't think the roster's all that great. I think Turge is getting the most out of this roster that he can. So the funny thing is, up until these last 2 losses, I thought this was one of his better coaching jobs, believe it or not, with the talent. Because I don't think there's much talent here. I just don't.
Right.
And like relying on Wiggins, where like they keep saying, "Oh, he's got such a huge ceiling." Well, when's he going to hit it? Like I mean, he's been fine, but when he's your 1A, and if you want to talk about Ayala being the other guy and Scott and some of the like, I like it. And Morcell's a phenomenal player. Like love him to death, but he's not adding anything offensively on most nights. Right. So their scoring has been an issue, and so devising things and trying to figure stuff out. I think they get in even if they lose. I wouldn't be shocked. Like right now, they're projected to play Clemson in the first round in some of these mock brackets or whatever you want.
Bracketology.
Yeah, I mean, look, things are clearly going to change. The ACC started today. You'll get the second round of that tomorrow. Big Ten starting soon. So I think if they lose on Thursday, which I expect them to Michigan State, that they still get in. And then here they are, like backing their way in with 3 losses. And I always tell people, those are the teams I like to gamble on because the point spread's going to be in your favor. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Terps pick up a win.
Not knowing the bracket, obviously we don't know what that's going to look like yet. You're a big college basketball guy. Who are your 2 teams that you'd like to see in the championship?
I love Michigan. I love the way I didn't like the way they finished the season. A couple of losses there, but there were a couple of times where they really locked down on defense in the second half. Everybody's talking about the top 3 with Michigan, Baylor, and Gonzaga, and the other thing with Illinois sliding in there now that they're healthy again. Those 4 teams are outrageously good, but I like Texas Tech. Mac McClung's there from Georgetown. And West Virginia is always a sneaky team to me because they're a tough team to play, but they just got housed by Oak State without Cade Cunningham.
Right.
Cade Cunningham's the best player in the country. If you haven't watched Oklahoma State play, he might be the number one player number one draft pick in the NBA draft. But I'm trying to think of some other team. The other team that I've been bringing up, and I'll use my last name. Watch UConn.
Yeah.
Book Knight is back. He's healthy. Their backcourt is what you need to drive you in March Madness. I not only think that UConn's going to win the Big East tournament, I think they're going to make a run in the postseason. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the Elite Eight, Final Four, or even making a longer run than that.
My money is going on UConn then. If they're coming from this guy, it's going on UConn.
The women's team's going to win again as usual.
Yeah. Right. So, all right. So I got one question. I know Ryan got one question. Then we'll get you out of here. So my question: I'm going to Vegas this weekend.
Oh, jeez.
What's one bet that you would recommend making going into this weekend?
I mean,
black. Bet on black.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say just because of what the spreads are going to be. If you're going to make a futures bet, I mean, look, there's value with teams like UConn. So the hard thing about making futures bets, because I'm not a guy, it's a little bit different for example, I bet the Ravens last year to win the Super Bowl. Didn't happen, but I like the odds that I got them at, especially coming off a 14-2 season. So I'm going, all right, I'll make that bet. 2 years ago, and it's funny that the Utah Jazz are playing extremely well, I put a hefty wager on the Jazz to win the NBA championship. Now, in my mind, do I think the Jazz are winning? No, because they still got to get through the Lakers, the Clippers, and all these other teams. But I thought they were a really good team that would put it together last year. Now it's pissing me off seeing what they're doing this year.
Right.
But again, ultimately, I don't think they win the NBA championship, but I think there's tremendous value in that bet. And that's the hard thing to try to tell people. It's I might not be giving you a winner with this futures bet, but you're getting a ton of value. It's the same thing I said, the UFC this past weekend when I talked about the main event fight with Adesanya and Jan. I was going, Jan is a live dog. I think if you bet him, you're on the right side to bet him. But ultimately, I think Adesanya wins the fight, but you're getting 2-1 odds on this guy that just won 2 previous fights as underdogs. Outright underdog, he won.
Right.
So, and then again, now it's 3 in a row because he beat Adesanya. So, that's the hard part because in betting in MMA, Major League Baseball, hockey, because you're playing that money line, the value is in betting underdogs, and it's such a difficult thing to do because nobody wants to come in and bet a guy plus 130. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I bet $100, I get an extra 30?
Yeah.
No, I want the guy that's 170 because I think he's going to win.
Right.
But ultimately, over the long haul, that's how you make money.
It's that whole thing of any given Sunday, any day, any team, any game.
Well,
so,
for example, if I gave you a 3-1 bet, a minus 300 team.
Right.
So, and you bet them 3 times to win. All I need to do is go 1-2 to make my money, to ultimately make money. Whereas you need to win, if you lose one of them, you're going to lose money.
Right.
Ultimately, because you're going to lose 3-1 when you lose that bet. And not to say that it's a hard way to look at things. That's why I like betting the NBA, betting college basketball, football. More people like to do that because baseball and hockey and all those things, they end up losing because they always want to bet on the better team, and the better team doesn't always win. I mean, even we talk about the Yankees winning 100 games, still means they lost 62.
Right.
That's comprehending that over the course of the long haul, and it's picking your spots, picking the right spots.
Right. Makes sense.
All right. What do you got, Ryan?
All right, well, I'm going to preemptively go to the Shell and Tell logo here since he's, or I'm sorry, not the Shell and Tell cam, but the Shell and Tell logo so that I can get this question in. My question is, I've been a Turge supporter. I put out the Fire Turge question, the one-man show on Shell and Tell. But the Penn State game, man, left and right, I was going, is he asleep? What's he doing? I didn't like that we were on a 12-0 run and he pulled all his seniors that he started. I get you start the seniors because it's a honorary start and you want your best talent on the court. But when you're on a run, you let it be until that run stops. That's my opinion. And then also, how do you let Lundy go for 31 when you have the defensive player of the year in the Big Ten and you're not manning him up or you're not playing a box and one? It just looked like he didn't coach at all during that game, and I've never been that guy.
Yeah, so that's always my thought process when I coach is if I have a guy on the other team that I want to make sure doesn't beat me, I'm going to, box and one, when you run a box and one, you're giving up a lot. There's so much space to cover, and if you have other shooters, you can bury yourself. So I like using it the same way I would use a press, meaning, again, here's another bad analogy, like a boxer that jabs. So I want to surprise you with it. I want to hit you with it real quick, get out of it. So now as soon as you get comfortable with that, then I get out of it. I would have shown Lundy so many looks. I would have run 2 players at him. I would have hedged him off of any of these screens to make sure he's not getting good looks. And you're right, watching that game, you're going, the hell are they doing? Like
they were just confident that one player wasn't going to beat him. They're like, well, everybody else is shut down, so we're fine.
And he did.
But that one player
He
beat them.
100% did.
Yeah, and then to me, that does fall on Terps. Like, in the 2 games that they lost, they jump out to early leads, and you're feeling pretty good, and it's like, what happened? Why are they falling apart? I mean, they had the big lead against Penn State and blew it.
Yeah.
And look, ultimately, it's probably not going to mean much except for seeding, and that's something we got into. The Terps are at that point of their season where I don't think them winning helps their stock ultimately that much. From like going from a 10 to a 9, where you're going to play the 1 seed in the next round if you win, or even going to an 8. It's kind of the same thing.
We talked about that 2 weeks ago. I said I want to get up to a 5 or
Right.
down to a 13-14
Yeah.
because it's ugly in the middle.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good mid-major teams that we're not sure how good they are, and it's going to be matchup dependent. And the weird thing this year, depending on how many fans are in there, it makes you wonder because the underdog always seems to have an advantage. Because if you're a Maryland fan and let's say Michigan's playing Eastern Washington or something, or Cal Santa Barbara. Everybody becomes Cal Santa Barbara fans there because they'd rather see Michigan lose, you know.
Right,
And now this year you might not get that. They might not be able to feed off the crowd. So I'm kind of curious to see if the cream rises to the top or if we see the upsets that we've seen in years
No
past.
more UMBC situations.
Jeremy, can't thank you
Thanks,
enough
man.
for taking the
Appreciate you guys
time and
having me.
joining
Thank
us,
you, man.
man. This is a
Appreciate
lot of fun. We got to do this again. Anything else that you want to say? Anything else you want to plug? Where people could find you on social media or anything?
No, I mean, look, I'm Jeremy Conn 1057. You can find me on there. You can check me out on on Facebook, the same thing. I think I'm maxed out at friends on there, which is I accepted every friend request, and then people are like, how come you haven't accepted my friend request? And then ultimately I end up going and deleting people that have died or have dead accounts or whatever. It's a very disgusting thing to try to do. So you can follow me on there too, but I post all my picks if anybody's interested in the gambling side. I'm interested to see how every other pick's doing because I was big on Duke today and big on the Miami over. They both hit earlier, and then I went 5-2 last night. So kind of getting back on the hot streak again. Hopefully heading into March Madness because 2 years ago I killed it. I had Virginia parlayed so many different ways when they won the national championship.
That's awesome.
That I woke up in the morning, looked at my account, and went, "Holy hell, did that just happen?"
Today's going to be a good day.
But no, and for people that want the Mo bobbleheads, we're talking about putting in a second order. We'll have it on a website where it'll be easier to get.
Nice.
We're learning through our mistakes and
Yeah.
trying to get them out to people. But I want everybody that wants to have one to have one. So appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Jeremy.
All right, man.
All right,
All right.
guys. Well, we're into the shell and tell segment here then, even though we've kind of preempted it here.
Yeah, I know. You jumped the gun like normal.
I needed the input there. I needed to be talked off the cliff. All right, so as we talked a little bit, the Terps follow up the 5-game win streak with 2 of the worst losses of the year to end the regular season, 8th in the Big Ten. I don't know how to cover these. I had like 3 pages worth of notes, and everybody's like, we can't do this, Ryan. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. A lot of stuff happened with the Terps this week.
A lot of stuff happened, but let's just sum it up. They shat the bed.
They did.
It's as simple as that, Ryan. They shat the bed. That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk anymore.
Well, I guess we'll go a little deeper than that then. Well, I broke this down a little good, bad, ugly. So we've talked a little bit of the bad, so we're going to start here with the good. Good, Northwestern. Wiggins went off.
He looked good in that game.
Career high 26 points, 10 for 15, including 5 for 9 from deep, 3 steals. The interesting thing that I found was that for the first time in Wiggins' college career, he took more 2-point attempts than threes. Do you think this had something to do with the success, or do you think this was just a one-off issue?
He just could not miss in this game, and it's what we've been. You have had some issues with his play at times, right, and not producing the way that he should.
Just looked like effort, because I do think he's talented. I like Jeremy's talking about his ceiling. I'm one of those guys. I see glimpses of the ceiling.
But it's also with this team. Sometimes it's a patience issue, and not in the way that you're thinking. It's a patience issue in that sometimes they're too damn patient to look for the perfect shot, taking it down to 8 seconds all the time. At other times, they're rushing it. And he's one of the prime guys that's doing that. So at times, he just rushes too much, or he's taking too much time trying to find the open shot, trying to see if he can open up the lane. And I get it. But at the same time, when the shot's in front of you and you can hit the 3 like he can, take it.
So do you think that this is just a game flow thing, that he only just had more 2s and 3s because that's just what they were giving him?
I think it's just It could be game flow. I just think there's something with him with confidence because he's been, if you look at his numbers over this year, he's been up and down all year long. And this just happens to be the highest peak at the right time, and it's with threes. Are they dishing it to him? Could it be game flow with coverage of other guys, like how they were covering Ayala? It's quite possible. But it's just frustrating with him that he's so inconsistent with his play.
Yeah. The other positive thing was we did talk about a little bit with Jeremy, hot starts, specifically 9-0 versus Northwestern, 12-0 versus Penn State. Again, Terps pulled his seniors. I don't understand. I feel like you can catch lightning in a bottle on a senior night. Yes, they are not your most talented players, but if they're running on adrenaline, like let them run on adrenaline. See how long that goes. So I did not like that he pulled them and it fell apart. Now, mostly it was because Lundy was on the bench, and after that timeout, Lundy came in and scored their first point. So what are you going to do? Apparently, that was the hottest hand in the nation.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. Is like you said, when you have when your team has a hot hand and they're shooting well and they're doing well, it's adrenaline. You let it run out, and if you're ahead, I'm not saying you let them catch up, but you let them get on a run. And that's the other point that I know we're going to get to is runs are a big thing. They have a lot. They had in multiple times in a lot of these games. They've had some good runs throughout the game. Just, I know we're going to get into the bad, but it just kind of flows over into the bad.
So last thing in the good, and I mean this is a bit of a stretch, but this is more of like a most improved thing. So this was just something that I've been noticing the last couple games. In the PSU or Penn State first half especially, Galen Smith's post moves continue to impress. He's got a baby hook that like seems undefendable at times. Other times he's not doing anything for the team, but he seems to be able to go over everyone and anyone. And then also Hamilton's finally playing the forward position that we thought he was instead of just launching threes off the bench. And I saw a little bit of Hart and Wiggins cut into the basket. It just seemed like they were practicing. It seemed like they were trying to find ways to play inside out without size. But we need to win the game. You can't get beat by Penn State twice in a year. I don't get it.
Especially when you need to win the game. You need to get in. This is your chance. You were a bubble tournament team at that point. It wasn't, nothing was clear set. Still nothing is clear set, but you need to do what it takes. And you're right. I think at times it was like, okay, let's see, does this work? Okay, let's see, does this work? And I get it if you are a team that is secured a spot in the tournament. You've played that well to say there's no reason for this team to not be in the tournament. But you're a bubble team. You need to do what it takes to get into this tournament. Simple as that.
These two games are an absolute embarrassment. You could have given me 100 guesses, and I would have never said that this team would have lost both of these games, especially coming off of winning those 5 straight. You beat a team like Michigan State. It's just all of that. There's no
Fred,
way.
you only need 2 guesses. It's yes or no, man.
Yeah.
You only need 2.
And I would have said no.
You said no
all
twice.
5 times.
No. All right, well, we're bringing Fred back in for the bad here then.
Oh, great.
All these things seem related
Awesome.
to me, and we'll get to that at the end. 0 bench points for the Terps against the Northwestern Wildcats. 0.
I mean, that's been this team's problem since the beginning, is that they have absolutely no depth. And I think that's part of what happened here was that when you have this 7-man rotation that we've talked about for the last couple of weeks, this team just got tired. They came off of 7 days rest when they had the Michigan State game that carried them through. But when you have to play games that close together and you're not using your depth and you're not using your bench like that, this is what's going to happen.
Well, that could very well be. I mean, you look at Dante Scott here in the bad column. Dante Scott, 4 fouls, 5 turnovers, and only 1 shot made in the Northwestern game. When you're tired, when you're slow-footed, you reach, you foul. It could be related in that way as well.
And he's been a bit bipolar this year in his play. I mean, he's had some games out there where you're like, damn, Dante Scott's shooting the lights out of the gym, can't miss anything. He's got an energy on another level. And then there's other times where he comes out there in that game where he just looked absolutely sloppy. We talked about it in that Northwestern game. He looked terrible.
Yep. Well, he wasn't the only one. Eric Ayala looked terrible at 2 for 12.
Yeah.
2 for 12. And even with
That's
that.
your boy.
I know. I'm the Eric Ayala truther. And even with that, he had a chance to save his night, to be the hero with a lightly contested 3 under the 20-second mark to take the lead. Another clank off the rim. And Morcell followed it up a couple seconds later with missing one that would have taken it to overtime.
So my question with the Morcell stuff is that, you have 2 games there where you're coming down to the wire in both of those games, and games that you shouldn't be. You should be blowing the doors off of both of these teams. But
Doesn't make any sense.
You've got a player one singular player in Aaron Wiggins who's actually playing good basketball. And in neither one of those games, when it matters the most, do you give Aaron Wiggins the opportunity to shoot the ball. You give it to, listen, I love Daryl Morcell, but Daryl Morcell is not a scorer. You give him the shot at 3 at the end of the game in a clutch situation. He did it one time last year against Minnesota that he ended up winning that game. But outside of that, he's never been that last-minute shooter, the clutch shooter at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to coaching issues here.
Yeah.
According to Turge, the Northwestern game, the play was designed to go to either Ayala or Wiggins, whichever one got open. And of course, Northwestern wasn't letting Wiggins get open. They knew that. So you needed a play that got Wiggins open or fouled.
Yeah.
That's what you needed. You didn't need an either
Teams
or play.
find ways to get their good players open. It's like you said,
And
the
if not,
inbounding the ball has been an issue with Turge's coach teams for years.
Northwestern found a way to beat the only player that was beating them. 26 points for Wiggins. We have Lundy going for 31. Nobody else has got 5, and we can't figure out how to stop Lundy. So it's just an issue there. So, again, tired. So close yet so far. I mean, basically in the fourth quarter, the last 11 minutes of the Penn State game, we were outscored 30-11.
Yeah.
11 points in 11 minutes. That's a 40-point game pace.
Yep.
That's so
terrible.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, and that's been, again, this team's problem is these lulls.
Yeah, even with that drought, it took Penn State to the 123 mark remaining to take the lead for the first time with only 58 points. How are we getting beat with people scoring 58 points?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
We can't consistently score.
A Wildcat game, same thing. We ended 0 for 7 from the field. Only needed 2 of them to fall to win that game. So it's all. I think you're right. I think we were stretching it. I mean, we're no, stranger to short teams that are playing people crazy 27, 37 minutes a game, whatever. But these players don't seem to be it. I mean, this is not Anthony Cowan. This is not Kevin Herter that we're running those 20 or 37 minutes a game.
Let's be honest, though. This team as a whole has overplayed expectations this year. Yeah, they looked what we thought they would look at times. And these 2 games, they looked like what we thought they would look like going into this season. I think we just kind of held on to hope because that 5-game stretch there, they seemed to put it together. They seem to be clicking offensively, which has been their struggle most of the year. But then the truth came out these last 2 games.
So, I mean, I put here, are we gassed? I think we both agree in here. We're gassed.
100% they're gassed.
In the fourth
you
quarter, they
cannot have a 7-man rotation like that. And when you're playing games on 2 days rest, 3 days rest, expect this team to be able to do this night in and night out.
It doesn't help when you're for the most part a purely defensive team.
Right.
They're one of the lowest.
That's the only reason we're in the position we're in right now. That's the only reason we're even talking about this team being a turning team is because they are so good defensively.
But
offensively, they are the least scoring team in the Big Ten.
Right. And that's kind of my point is you're putting all the effort is put into stopping other teams, which is great, but long term it's not a recipe for success. And honestly, I will be absolutely surprised if in any way, shape, or form they make it out of the first round of the tournament, because I think they're going to be too gassed after those 2 games and the Big Ten tournament. I just don't see them being able to be successful.
Mark Turgeon talked about it after the game too. That last loss to Penn State, it was an emotional loss. There was a lot of tears in the locker room and that kind of thing, and that can be mentally taxing too. And I don't know how much gas this team has left. Did they expel it during that 5-game winning streak, and they're just going to shit the bed in the Big Ten tournament and then again in the NCAA tournament? I'm thinking more likely that that's what we're going to see, unfortunately.
And again, I mean, we've kind of beat this to death, but congratulations, Daryl Morcell. You won the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. It's well-deserved.
Congratulations to your social media team for doing a great job.
Yeah, and I think you could probably win a national championship, but again, we didn't play. If people aren't understanding how good Lundy was, he made 11 of the 19 field goals made by the Penn State team. 11 of 19. Wow. 31 points. I mean, I don't know how you let that happen.
Drew, what were you wanting to chime in?
Small 2 cents. I'm never talking Terps. But do you guys now say they lose to Michigan State? Would you I don't know what to say, would you rather see them, but would you almost think or rather see them be one of the 11 or 12 seed play-in games? Not necessarily the 10 seed anymore or an 11 or a 12 outright, but like have to actually play in, because that almost sounds like what should become of them if they collapse like they did.
I don't like our chances either way, regardless of what they got to do. I think this team is a one and done, or maybe a 2 game, depending upon the matchups and all that stuff. But I don't know, Ryan. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about trying to get either up or down, and obviously we're not going up because we lost these 2 games. If we would have won both, and then I would be sitting here going, we need to beat Michigan State to try to get to a 5 seed, but we can't do that now. Right. So, I mean, if Jeremy's right and we get in either way, I'd almost be okay with losing to Michigan State and dropping down some. But honestly, it all depends what you think of Turge, because there are plenty of Maryland fans that are, I call them fans, but I'm not doing this. I'm never going to root against the team fully. Like, if I'm rooting against us against Michigan State, it's because I want them to make a run in the tournament. Right. It's not because I want them to lose both and get out Turge. Like, these kids didn't do anything wrong to you. You should root for your team.
I mean, regardless of the Turge situation, I mean, we can all agree that he has some challenges there as far as coaching goes, but this athletic program is just not in position financially to go out there and get a big name. So
100% buyout and have to get a big name? That's
not going to happen. So whoever this replacement that's coming in is going to be either a retread somewhere that's just trying to find another job, or it's going to be some young upstart kid like a Juan Dixon that's playing down in Coppin State, somebody like that of that nature, that it's not going to cost the university a whole lot of money.
So Wildcat game brought up one other postseason type issue for me. There were only 7 free throw attempts for the Terps and only 11 for the Wildcats. Turge was quoted as saying it looked like a football game out there. Obviously, we didn't handle that well. Is postseason basketball kind of like postseason football where these refs swallow their whistle? Is it going to be a more physical style of basketball that we're not going to handle well, or is that just a one-off issue?
I'll give you my opinion. I mean, I think it's in the tournament. These guys, the pureness to the tournament is it's usually pure basketball, right? These guys are playing tough basketball. For some of these guys, it could be the end of their basketball careers. And so letting them play out, I think the games that you see that happen, you see lower foul calls. I don't know the numbers. I feel like there's less fouls in the tournament, just based on like my thought process of seeing games and not seeing a lot of fouls and it just being a pure basketball game. It becomes a little bit more physical down low. You get that. This is the closest some of these guys will ever get to the NBA. This is the closest. So I think that's why you do let things go. And to that point, I don't know that they can handle it. The amount of fouls in that Penn State game was ridiculous. Some of them, okay, it was ticky-tacky at times, but the majority of them were just stupid fouls on the players' parts as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Scott's saying.
All right. So Thursday, who shows up? Do we get the team that went on a 5-game win streak or the team that shat the bed versus nobody's?
I think we're going to have the team that shot the bed just because I think, like I said, I think they're exhausted. I think they're going to come out motivated. They might score well out the gate, but then they're going to have one of those lulls mid-game towards the end of the game where they can't hit the broadside of a barn because they're going to run down on energy, and they're just not going to be able to get the job done.
It's going to be a competitive game.
Especially in a physical Big Ten tournament game.
I think it's going to be a competitive game just because of their history with playing against top-tier teams. I just... Something, and maybe I got the Jeremy itch of betting the underdog.
Right.
But something is telling me.
Itch.
Yeah, I got the Vegas itch too. Maybe
the Vegas
Can I hold your money for you?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. If I make some, maybe you don't need to.
All right.
I'll place a bet for you, Ryan. How about that?
We might work that out after the show. The Athletic NBA Big Draft Board was released. Top spot is a surprising Dante Scott at 78. So still not in the NBA draft there at 78. There's 60 NBA draft spots and not even that many with guaranteed money or positions on teams. Then quote closely followed behind by Aaron Wiggins at 80. So does this mean we're more likely keeping both these players or more likely losing both these players maybe to a G League or overseas?
Nah, I just don't think there's enough money in the G League. Overseas, potentially, that could be an Aaron Wiggins thing. I think Dante Scott's got another year, maybe 2 left in College Park. I'd love to see Aaron Wiggins coming back. The only problem with him is right now he's 22, he'll be 23 by the time that year, that season kicks off. So he's getting up there as far as draftable age. I don't know how much more growth Aaron Wiggins has. Listen, he took a big step forward this year as far as his aggressiveness, especially in that last stretch of games there where he seemed to not be as timid. He seemed to be able to take the control of the ball, and I like that. And we saw more of the scorer that we saw his freshman year, and I hope we continue to see that at College Park, not at the professional level next year.
My take on this is I look at it and I say, this is a loaded question, Ryan, because
that's the point.
Right, I get that, but it's a loaded question because of the tournament, right? Because if you have some guys that are in the top 60 in the tournament and they shit the bed in the tournament when it truly matters, NBA teams look at that. If you can't perform at a high level when the lights are on, you start losing value. And so a guy like Dante Scott or even Aaron Wiggins, if they do well in the Big Ten tournament or they do well in the tournament itself, it could increase their value. And look, they're not that far off. They're not that far out of the bubble. I get it's 18 and 20 guys, but it's real easy for that to kind of happen.
All right, I know we're running long, man, but I had to give the Lady Terps their credit.
For sure.
Hell yeah.
They just won the 6th Big Ten title in only 7 years of being in the Big Ten.
Not mind you, like this.
Brenda mode. Let me say that. Brenda mode.
This ladies hoop squad was basically pieced together. They had
all
five of their starters
gone.
transfer out or go pro. And they had to rebuild this, so they're pulling, people from all different schools. They threw this together, and it came together and had a great year.
Yeah, so with that said, Brenda Fries won the Big Ten Coach of the Year, and I'm pretty sure she's going to win other awards there too.
For sure.
So I'm going to pose this question to you because I think it's a legitimate question. I know that you aren't on the Fire Church thing, and there are people that are. I'm not one of those.
I think Ryan's starting to get
State
there.
got me close, but I've never been that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this: Is there value or something here to the idea of seeing a Brenda Fries come in? You're saying no, don't make it. It's a big name, but part of Brenda Fries is it's not only recruiting, but it's scheming with her.
Are you saying moving Brenda to the men's team? I think that would be really bad PR move for Maryland's.
Wow,
really?
Yes, because you're putting down the women's team as if this is not as big an accomplishment. Come do this for us over here.
Right.
If she worked out her contract or if she made the request like, I've accomplished everything I can do in the women's game, I want to try my foot here, great. But to literally be like, well, can you come do this over here? I don't think it would look well. And
I look at it and say, now you're doing it in multiple portions of the program. And maybe I'm being naive, and I absolutely could be being naive with that because I see your point.
Great. I would imagine that's already happening. I imagine Brenda and Turgeon are close, and they talk already.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it matters.
Maybe you should find some scheming out there.
I would not remove her from her head coaching duties while.
No, I'm not saying remove her. I'm just saying I think there is
have the conversation.
Whether it's with Maryland or she can go somewhere else in the Big Ten and be a men's coach. I'm not putting down the women. The men just make more money. We've talked about this. The men's team makes more money, even though the women are way fucking better. They are way better.
It's a different X's and O's game too, so it's not as easy of a transition from the women's game to the men's game.
It's a very different game. The league's not as deep. The winning teams are the winning teams every year.
You're seeing more.
And that's not saying that she can't be successful.
You're seeing a few assistant coaches in the NBA. They're females. So
no, I know.
I'm not saying it's any different.
This isn't to say that she can't be successful. It's just it's not as easy as a transition as you
I don't
think.
want to gut a successful team in hoping she can be
successful.
No,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if that opportunity comes that she says, I want to go the next level, whether it's with you guys or with somebody else, whether maybe she's a athletic director type situation.
I think she's going to be there till she's old and gray, and she's going to be dominating the country with women's basketball. I just think that's what her.
She's going to turn them into a powerhouse. She already is a true.
She's
powerhouse,
already a top 10 program as of now. They're gonna stay that way, and hopefully they get to the top 5 program. 2018 was their only down year. They got second in the Big Ten. Sorry about that, guys. But that's it. They're the greatest thing we got going on at Maryland.
All right, Scott, it's time for this week's Liquor Stop Brew of the Week. And what did Jerry give us this week?
So this comes from Old Ox Brewing. It's out of Ashburn, Virginia, just south of D.C. This is their Alpha Ox Hoppy Pale Ale. It's 4.5% ABV, and in their words, meet alpha, amazing hop character, satisfying malt backbone, smooth finish, light malt sweetness, gives way to dazzling citrus and pine, hoppy goodness. You know you want to try it. Don't overthink it. Just drink it.
Very
Cheers.
hoppy. Can definitely taste the pine in it. I don't taste the citrus as much, but
I don't taste citrus much, but mine's almost done. Like
yeah, I just opened mine, so
this is I don't hate it.
I need more citrus, less pine.
Yeah, this reminds me of a fall beer. This reminds me more of like a Christmas time type beer, but yeah, it's pretty good.
All right, fair enough. It's not bad though. Make sure you go out to Liquor Stop 1510 Conowingo Road. Make sure you tell Jerry and the team out there that the Birdland BS sent you.
That's all, folks.
Oh my God!
All right, fellas, it's time for some bros, bows, and O's as we get closer and closer to opening day, which the Maryland governor, Larry Hogan, came out today publicly and said that he is lifting restrictions, which means that there will be 50% capacity allowed at sporting events now. Meaning, yay, we're going to have opening day! Hooray! Where's the applause button? There it is!
Yay! How are we going to figure out who the hell gets opening day tickets?
No, not only that, man. I literally was eating at Pickles like 4 days ago for my lunch break with the 4 people that were in there.
You mean the servers?
And yeah, one of them was the bartender, and they were discussing. We don't know what's going on for opening day, but it looks like they're probably doing 25% was the rumor that they were hearing at that point. Now it's 50%. That's all fine and good. 50% in the stadium. You guys know every year 5 times the number of people that are in the stadium are on the street.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be 10 times the number of people this year on the street inside the stadium.
And I'll be one of them. If I can't get into that fucking stadium, you better believe I'll be out there. I'll take my DeWalt power station. I'll have the TV out there. I'll watch it right on fucking front of Pickles.
There's no tailgating, Fred. No tailgating. Oh my God.
Stand gating.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited for it, but at the same time, like my first thought was, great. How the hell are you going to determine who gets the 50%? Because even if you have the season ticket holders, you're going to have to turn some of them away.
Yeah.
Because even the 13 games, the 50%.
Well,
no, but
50% capacity.
But think of you're thinking 89 game plans. You're thinking the 29 game plans.
Do you really
you're thinking of the 13 game.
Do you really think they sell 25,000 season ticket plans?
No.
Do you know how many different stages of season ticket plans there are?
No, I know that. I know, but I'm asking you, realistically, knowing what the Orioles have done and knowing where they are right now, do you think that they're selling 25,000 packs that include opening day?
I think it's close to 20, if I'm being honest.
But that includes the partials, so those don't count as whole people. Like that because they're only going to get every other game.
But the partials get opening day tickets. That's my point.
Well, so
all those partials
they could modify that. They could modify that and say, well, in order to have access to opening day, you must buy a 80-game pass, and if they're going to do that, then nobody's going to fucking do it.
And then lose everybody that even thought about going.
What'll happen?
Turn around and sell.
They'll sell them all for opening day because everybody wants to go. Everybody's looking for an excuse. It's just if you want to lock your space in.
The aftermarket price will fucking go up like crazy.
Right, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Go ahead, Drew.
I'll throw the stick in the mud there for a second.
Yeah.
Just because Larry said 50% does not mean that the mayor of Baltimore will okay. And you got
100%.
It is.
That's been true the whole time.
Drew is on the cashing couch because he's just giving us in the ass right now.
Wow.
No lube.
Easy.
No lube.
But my point being, that was reining it back in because we're running short on time. If he doesn't agree to open up the stadiums until it's too late to give out, you know what I mean? Like, how do they pull that off?
And the other side to that is, you mentioned Larry Hogan, but Larry Hogan doesn't control Baltimore City.
That's what I just said.
It's mayor's. Well, it's Scott. It's Scott's decision.
That's what I just said.
You didn't say Scott though.
Okay,
he didn't say his name. He said the mayor of Baltimore.
I didn't hear mayor of Baltimore because I was worried about you.
That was the whole point of the conversation, Scott.
All right, whatever.
All right, Drew's right. He wins that battle.
Why did I come tonight?
All right.
What is the point?
All right.
The couch and couch.
Let's rate it in.
Anyway.
So some other good news. Some other good news around the Orioles, right? So I know Oriole fans, panties have been in a bunch for a while, worried about the Orioles leaving town, right? That's been the worry ever really since Mr. Angelos, the old guy, Peter, got sick. We didn't know what the direction of this organization was going to be under the direction of the Suns. They hadn't really gone public with their stance. I mean, yes, I think John had said in passing in an interview one time that the Orioles are here to stay. We've heard all that before. Well, 105.7 The Fans, Ken Wyman and Jason Lockenfora got to sit down interview with John Angelos, and it's a 2-hour special. They're breaking it into segments right now, which you can go on radio.com, follow their page there.
Four that they've released so far.
Yeah. Angelos has been pretty transparent, pretty open with what his plans are. What did you think?
I say transparent-ish.
Really? I think he's been pretty
Transparent
clear.
and lies sound very similar. Depending on what's happening.
That's why I said ish.
That's the other side.
If
That's
it's true, it's been transparent.
Far
If
more
it's not-
transparent than the ownership has ever been for this.
That's because the ownership was he's dead inside and he doesn't know how to talk already.
The son took over.
and outside.
So look, here's the deal about this whole thing, right? You mentioned the piece about him, setting fans at ease. So let's play the clip of exactly what he said.
I don't react because it's untrue. The team would never move. It will never move. It's here now. It's here forever. It's been here for 66 odd years, and it's going to be here for 66 more or longer. So,
Do you forgive any fans that don't trust him or believe him?
All right, so I know we've heard this before. Last name was Irsay, and then obviously they boarded the Mayflower and went up to
Indianapolis.
So I know we've heard this before, but it wasn't just that, because he went much more in detail about not only are they not leaving, but what the future growth plans are for not only the stadium, but the environment down there around the stadium, what they plan on doing as far as other events outside of the Orioles. Because for years, right, Oriole Park at Camden Yards hadn't been used for anything else other than the Orioles, right? And we saw that before pandemic, that they were starting to plan things as far as with Billy Joel's concert and more concerts like that. So other ways to generate revenue, because you're sure shit not draining any revenue in with the Orioles right now. So he was very candid about the future plans and the growth of that area down there, that I believed it. I think that the plan is to keep the team here. I don't question it. I never really have from the beginning. And I kind of like the idea, because he looks at this as not just a great venue for Baltimore to enjoy their home team, but this in its relation to 95 and its access for outside travelers to come in. I mean, it's in a prime spot for people to be able to hit from 95 coming through town. That's why, I mean, the Orioles games have always done well with out-of-town travelers, because the stadium is so beautiful, but because it's so easy to get to. There are other stadiums that are in the middle of fucking cities and nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, that nobody goes to, even though they are beautiful. They just don't have access.
Part of it, too, pre-Nats was the fact that you had a lot of DC fans that were, I can tell you right now, the guy that sits in the seat that we actually now have, we used to have 2, now we have 3 seats. The guy that used to sit in the seat that we now have, he lives in DC.
Yeah.
He's now a Nats fan. He's still an Orioles fan. He still loves, we see him every once in a while where he comes out, and he'll come out and say hi to us if he comes down and sees us. But there's a lot of different factors. The evolution of what's been happening, not only just in MLB, but with the Orioles, with Opacey, with what they're trying to do with the yard and everything, the upgrades and all that stuff, it's there.
Well, he kind of actually labeled that as Opacey 2.0.
Right.
Oriole Park at Camden Yards 2.0. That's the development plan down there. Did you listen to that and some of the things that he went into as far as plans with that?
I did. I'm torn on it, and here's why I say that, right? I think some of the upgrades, absolutely great, absolutely necessary. What I fear is that we get away from what made Camden Yards, what it made it then, and what still makes it now, the Camden Yards or the ballpark of the future, right? We paved the way to give some of the homage to the past while creating things of the future, right? And I get they're trying to upgrade it. Prime example for me, 2012. I was not and still am not a fan of the damn Dempsey sign on Utah Street. I know some people are like, what the fuck? That's something so small, it's stupid. There's just something about that raw. Like, it's the equivalent of putting a giant ad on the Monster.
for a local business.
Yeah, but it's a local business that has Oriole ties to.
I get
If it was a McDonald's thing, I'd 100% agree with you. But
I get
it's
that.
Dempsey's.
But now, like, so the other part to what I was kind of getting into is you don't know how long Dempsey is going to be okay with it. And we're already learning that partnership may be falling apart with him. So now that giant piece that you have there has defaced this building that has sat and stood the test of time, right? It's just me.
Let me ask you this.
It's
then.
the purist in me of what the stadium was.
And you are. You're the definition of a purist. Let me ask you this.
I have my times where I lean away from that.
What's been your opinion over the years of the Orioles selling the naming rights to the stadium? Because that's a big revenue generator, again, to an organization that needs revenue.
Torn. I get it.
The fact that you're torn on that, but Dempsey's was such a big deal to you blows my mind.
because
I would think you'd be completely against it.
Because I understand we need revenue in order to survive.
Okay.
If we don't have the revenue,
but
in
your
order
problem
to survive,
with Dempsey's was that you're
Dempsey's
making it
is
too.
Dempsey's is not about revenue. That's where you're wrong.
No,
Delaware,
I'm not.
Delaware North Sports.
You're jumping to
Group is-
conclusions. I'm not saying that Dempsey's is wrong. What I'm saying is your notion was that your problem was it became too busy. It became too like you were trying to grab dollars, and Dempsey's isn't because Dempsey's is a local guy. It's got all those ties. So
Dempsey's for me. Let me clear that up. Dempsey's for me wasn't about the money. Dempsey's for me was defacing what I viewed as a purist version. That's why I said it. To me, it's the equivalent of putting a giant ad on the Green Monster.
So it's the ad because that's what threw me off.
Correct.
Ad generates money. Well, then, if you're defacing what was originally there, were you against the scoreboard upgrade to change it from the white letters to the color? Were you against the small jumbotron and going to the big jumbotron? Because these are things that they developed over time that enhance the viewer's perspective there.
It does, and part of me does. It's the nostalgia part of me.
You had a problem with that
when it first came out. Yeah.
Huh.
Real quick.
Interesting. I just wouldn't have thought you would.
Yeah.
I really don't mind the Dempsey, but the thing that we can't control is that goddamn hotel that they fucking built.
The clock tower.
Yeah. I have a picture.
I agree with that.
Like this great view of the skyline and that clock. It was better than they put this fucking hotel up.
I know. I agree with that. Yeah, that completely changed the backdrop of the stadium. I 100% agree with you on that. I don't know. To me, again, you're in an organization that needs to figure out ways to generate revenue. You just got a huge undercut with Masson, right? You got to figure out a way to replace that. And if it means selling the naming rights to the stadium, I'm okay. I'll always know it as Oriole Park at Camden Yards, at Under Armour, or at somebody else, whatever you want to name it.
And
if it's going to bring you in $10 million a year, it's $10 million.
And that's why I'm torn. But the other side to me says you want to make money.
Selling the naming rights to that stadium would have kept Manny Machado here in Baltimore.
So are we keeping the Camden Yards or the Oriole Park in this? You're not selling both. It could be like Capital One Field at Bird Stadium. So which one are we keeping in the selling? Because it makes a difference for me.
I like Camden Yards.
I like keeping Camden Yards too. I could deal with Under Armour Field at Camden Yards. That would not bother me.
Yeah.
Oriole
like
Park
Camden
at Under Armour Yards. Fuck that. I'm not in.
Go ahead, Drew.
I would say they played more today. I don't know how many parts. I only heard the one because then I had to go to the grocery store. They asked him that question about naming rights for the stadium to generate revenue, and he was real. I don't want to say wishy-washy, but he didn't really answer the question. Mm-hmm. But he did delve into saying maybe that's something we could broach, down the road. And then on top of that, talking about as a whole, then he kind of shifted to the league as a whole. You take what they've been doing in Europe for ever, and now the NBA is doing, where you'd have, all right, maybe you're getting Capital One logos on your they delved into that too, but he was a little. He didn't really answer. I don't think he. Maybe there's.
But I feel like
discussions where they could change the naming rights, but there's nothing where he's saying right now, we've already been talking to Nike, or whatever else.
But the thing with the uniform stuff, what the NBA is doing though, that's a that's not just an organization thing. That's a league decision, right? Yeah. So that's got to get the approval through league before it becomes Angelo's decision.
The other thing with what you're talking about, Drew, that I kind of take issue is there was a lot of things throughout the entire interview so far that have been wishy-washy with him. And his response has been, oh, well, it's something that we're thinking on. What?
Fred looks like he didn't listen to the same interview as
Yeah, I didn't think anything was wishy-washy.
How many times can you remember how many times, thinking back, how many times he said, yeah, the partnership, we're thinking about that. That's something that we've talked about with the partnership.
He's answering the question.
They're exactly.
I'm with you, Scott.
He's walking around it saying, oh, we're talking about it. If you're going to come out, I'm not saying you have to have all the answers, but the fact that
you made this 2-hour special.
You made this 2-hour special, and part of it, maybe part of it's the way that it's being portrayed. I don't know, but my issue comes out, and why I said he gives answers ish is because when it was brought up about Masson, right? That was the one that was recently released, was Masson. With that, he talks about. Oh, he gives he basically gave a 10-minute history lesson on what cable was and what streaming is. Right. We all know what cable is, and we all know what fucking streaming is. Right. And you sit here and you want to give us. He walked around this entire question.
I can see that.
Instead of saying, you know what? And then when it came to people
we didn't know until this week.
Right. When it came to, well, people have said, well, what about the pay option? I can pay, like we've talked about.
Yeah.
Pay $5 a month, and I can actually get access to Masson content and watch all the games live. Well, nobody in the industry quite has it figured out. I'm pretty sure fucking Nesson and Yes Network have it fucking figured out, asshole.
Toronto just figured it out.
Right. Like there are so many things that he said that's why I said ish, because I'm going, I like some of the things. I like that you're out in front of everybody. I like that you're trying to answer questions that the fans had.
We never had a 10-minute sit down with Peter,
right.
alone
and that's why I said I like things about it. But the fact that there were so many questions that he walked around, and it was owner speak is what I would call it, because he literally just walked around the conversation.
I'm with Scott.
Okay.
I just don't believe it. Money talks, bullshit walks. So if comes when Peter passes away and like they can't afford it, you think they're going to really come out and say, hey, well, it all depends on the situation, if we can afford it. If not, I'm going to have to sell the team. He's not going to come out and say that, because then he loses money for the years.
He loses the partnership money. He loses
before his dad dies, and
it's up to the tax laws on whether we keep all my dad's money.
You think he's really going to say, "Hey, we really can't afford it when our father passed, so probably they're going to be moving"? No, because no one's going to go to the ballpark. Money's not going to be coming in. It's going to be even worse, and they're going to have to sell it cheaper than what it can be when it's time to sell. I don't believe it. Money talks, bullshit walks, and Fred, we both know when we lose a father, it could change. Say, hey, I don't even want a part of this right now because I'm dealing with so much shit that I don't want it.
The thing with that is, though, it's not just Angelos. There's a ton of investors that are involved in this, and they're all local investors that have ties to the area, not just the money.
All of them don't really have the money for it.
Right,
that's why they're
that's why it's a partnership group, and I get that there's decisions that have to be made. But here's the deal: if you're not listening to your fucking fans telling you, I'll pay you $5 a month, right? And we're just using this example, and if you haven't already had that conversation, why are you even saying, oh, we're going to put out a Masson app?
Right.
Because you're still saying, oh, it's got to be through the network provider. It still has to be through that. You're still seeing the same amount of money. It's just a slight percentage more versus if you actually came out with a finished product.
Well, all right. So let's move on a little bit, right? Because another topic that he got into on this, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, was sports gambling, right? He talked about sports gambling, and obviously
Jeremy would have been a good one for this one.
I know. I wish Jeremy could have stayed for this one, but obviously you got the casino in the backyard there, right? And it was kind of interesting, his take on this. He said he really doesn't care to see it, but if people want it, then so be it. State just needs to set regulations to not harm those that it may hurt. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, the fact that you're trying to build this whole partnership with the Ravens and everything that's going on downtown right now, you would think that would somehow incorporate the casino, which is right there in your backyard, which is also a revenue generator for the state, that would all be part of your plan, that he's not... I get it. He's saying, oh, we'll do it if they want it, but that you're not fully bought into that was kind of interesting to me.
You know what just hit me?
He's a politician.
Exactly. Like, I literally sit here going,
everything he said.
Well, only if the
like
money can go to the school.
Exactly. Like he's like, oh, as long as it doesn't, we have to have a moral and ethical reason that people, some people get exposed to gambling.
Well, he's an attorney by trade, right?
Right, exactly. And I get that. But at the same time, like the politics speak was greater than the attorney speak in my thoughts. And I'm right there with Ryan. It's one of those things that, look, I understand what you're saying. But from my understanding, and I could be wrong, from my understanding, the way that the bill is being presented in front of the Maryland General Assembly would be that if we allow sports gambling, not only would it be allowed at places like Hollywood and some of the other places, it opens the door for other venues.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about this the other night when we were kind of over here prepping everything. Why would you not at least hear it out if you could have, I don't know, something like the left field picnic perch, but maybe it's where the Miller High Life section is on the right field line, right? What if that's your gambling session and it's a premium ticket, right? That you can have that. You could very easily charge.
It doesn't need to be littered all throughout the stadium. You can designate areas.
Right, designate an area for it. And
it's
you
like
say
they
that
used to do a smoking area.
And do you have any idea what MGM would pay to take over that and like throw 6 slot machines up there?
100%.
Oh, yeah, no, 100.
Oh my God.
But that's my point is if you want to bring in if you're wanting to bring extra revenue in, and this is kind of where it's going to go against what I was saying with the purist thing, but if you're really that set on extra revenue, there are areas you can do it without defacing the park. And that's what I mean by that.
Smoke. Anything that's not baseball that can get me to a baseball game, let's do it.
MGM at the warehouse is going to be all over the warehouse. MGM.
MGM at Camden Yards.
MGM at Camden Yards.
The warehouse is going to be the casino area.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just fill the whole thing.
Don't put it past them.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the roster, spring training, some of the guys, some of the things that we've seen so far.
We haven't seen much.
Yeah, we haven't. We haven't seen, quote unquote, seen much at all. We did get to see or hear that King Felix made his debut the other day, struck out a couple, said his fastball sat around 84, 85 mile an hour, which I'm pretty sure I was hitting at Dave & Buster's the other day. So they're saying there's a chance for me to make the roster if 84, 85 is the bar. I'm good with it. I don't know, man. I don't know what to expect.
84 at 6 feet 6 inches is a lot of difference since at 84 at 6 feet.
Listen, I'm just going off what Dave & Buster's
60
machine
feet
told me.
6 inches is different than 6 feet.
I want to know where the Dave & Buster's invite went.
I know, right? What the hell? It's that bromance between the two of them. Jesus. So, like, here's the deal. I know we've talked about this at nauseum. We were hoping that Jeremy would be able to stick around. We appreciate him joining us. This was one thing I was really intrigued because we talked about this. This is another situation. Michael Ballman hasn't pitched yet. That's the guy that you brought up.
Yeah.
Right? He has not pitched yet. He's thrown some sessions in the back, in the backfield, but he has not gotten into a game yet.
Right.
So there's concern there.
Yeah, that's been my problem is that, like I said, you got the King Felixes of the world. You've got the Matt Harveys of the world, which Matt Harvey looked like trash, like we all thought he would the other day. You got these guys coming in here and eating up innings and eating up the development, the growth of some of these younger pitchers. And Ballman is one of those guys that I want to see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is you
and it's not about competing right now. It's about growth. It's about opportunity. It's about giving these guys a shot and learning because they're going to go through their bumps. They're going to hit their,
So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate. Harvey is probably the not so great example. King Felix, I think, is probably a pretty decent example as far as I'm concerned about a veteran that can come in and give some decent advice. Are you having him come in and really making a true run? If you get something out of it, that's why he's on a minor league deal. If you get something out of it, great. He's able to make you somewhat competitive, or he can come in and do it. I get it. But I get your side of it too, that there's guys that can come up. Maybe he can make an impression on some of those guys. Maybe somebody needs a little bit more oomph. Maybe they need a little bit more advice from a guy that's been there and done that.
I don't think either one of these guys filled that mold as like the mentor type. I really think these are two has-beens that are holding on for way too fucking long. Okay. And the Orioles are just trying to hope that they can cash in on a gold medal where they put it together for a couple of weeks, show that they can pitch still, and then get some sort of compensation for them in a trade.
I don't disagree with you. Again, I'm trying to look at this and say There's a reason they bring him in. Either these guys aren't ready, or they're seeing if there's competition. What does it hurt? But I do think it does hurt when in a week you haven't seen a guy like Michael Ballman, but yet you've seen Felix, you've seen Harvey. They both, Harvey looked horrible. Felix is looking decent. But I'll tell you what, one thing neither of those guys is. They ain't a fucking Mike Wright.
No.
Did you see the post?
I ran into Mike Wright at a Home Depot. Didn't want to say hi though.
Yeah, I was really mad about that. I was there. I was like, bro, just be like, hey man, I'm really enjoying.
Nah, man.
No, he wouldn't.
You know what's funny? Do you know what's funny? Do you know what's funny about that though? Is that he had been traded. All right, he was, I guess, done with Seattle. I think that's where he was after and he still had his Oriole shit on. Like he had like those long baseball socks on that had the Oriole bird on. I'm like, what the fuck? You still wearing your old Orioles shit? It's pretty funny.
Because he was at the Rosedale Home Depot.
Yeah, I was surprised to see him there.
He's right now. I think spring training right now. He's already got like a 16 ERA and he's 0 for 2.
So completely side note. You want to feel old for a second?
No.
Yeah. Jake Arrieta is 35. I feel like it was just yesterday we were talking about him being a prospect, and he's 35 now at this point. It's just crazy to me that how fast that shit happened where we got rid of him. He was a Cy Young. Now he's like falling off the end of his career here. But 35 years old.
Still made more money than you and I will.
No, 100%. I'm talking about that. It's just crazy how fast that happened.
So the last thing I did want to bring up is this week we saw Adley Rutschman.
Yeah.
He's been looking great defensively.
You saw or heard?
Yeah, we heard.
Well, I saw videos on the Orioles website.
I saw a video of Adley of somebody recording a TV of Adley. Like that's how bad it was.
But he's been 2 for 8 at the dish so far. The thing that concerned me was the one game. I think it was the Minnesota game the other night. The aggressive hacks.
Yeah, he's just trying to make an impression, dude. He's trying to make a big impression, make a big splash, get up here faster than what the
first swing looked like Chris Davis from the right-hand side. I was a little worried.
Don't ever compare Adley Rutschman to Chris Davis.
I'm not yet, but I'm just saying, like it was
That's a
scary.
Deshaun Watson comparison if I've ever heard one. Jesus.
Look, here's the deal. He did an interview. I think he interviewed well. He answered the questions well that they had. Little cockiness to him, which your number one pick. You kind of have that. You kind of have that ability. He did say that he feels he has the ability to compete at any level right now. Look, it's early. It's early in spring training. It's early in the year. Early in his career. Any concerns if he were to make the team early?
I'm not worried about them starting his clock early or any of that shit anymore. Like that stuff's gone for me. Like you got to give these guys opportunities, right? And right now, though, if you are bringing the King Felix of the world and the Matt Harveys of the world, his presence here isn't as important because he's not working with the guys that are going to be here for the future. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you weren't bringing those guys along and you were bringing up the Michael Ballmans and you were bringing up the DL Halls, then yeah, I want him here because he's got to learn with these guys. He's got to build a reputation with these guys. If they're not going to be here, well, then he needs to be down there with them, in my opinion. I'd love to see him sooner, but I think realistically, September is probably when we'll see him.
Okay.
It's just my take on the whole thing.
All right. Let's move on.
All right. All right, man. It's time for this week's rundown. We're going to do things a little different. We figured, you know what? This is the rundown, right? It's called the rundown. This is supposed to be a quick hitter, couple topics going on nationwide, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start this segment off.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys remember, unfortunately, when the helicopter crash with Kobe Bryant and all that stuff.
You mean the worst thing that was going to happen in 2020, right?
The worst thing that we thought was going to happen in 2020. Yeah, 2020 did not start off well. But if you remember, there were some pretty graphic photos released to the public of the crash site. And Vanessa Bryant is going after the LA County there, and they just had a ruling. The judge ruled in favor for Vanessa Bryant, the widow of Kobe,
right,
in the helicopter crash photo shoot. That she's actually going to be able to get the names and details of the sheriff deputies that released those photos, which is then going to help her build her case against the county. I think this was a good move. I think the county, now listen, they do have the chance to appeal this, and I think it would be a bad look and a bad move for the county to appeal this. But I think this was a good ruling. I think this is fair. That that she now has the names and the details of who released those photos to be able to build her case.
Yeah, I mean this is a serious I don't want to say it's not quite defamation of character, but I mean you're putting photos out of a dead guy that's honored throughout history and throughout the world.
Right.
She deserves it,
and his daughter, and other people, other folks that were there.
There's a lot that's there. So privacy is key. It can be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah.
One thing I definitely think has been interesting this past week. So ESPN released one of their little series they kind of do every once in a while. This one they called Unbreakable, and this was the Rachel Luba story. Great story. If you didn't get a chance to see it, go check it out. ESPN has it on their website. Really, really great story because this girl is the youngest certified female agent in baseball at 28 years old. Okay. Let me tell you who her first client is.
Okay.
Trevor Bauer.
It's a pretty damn good land.
She got him the $40 million a year that he got.
That's
right?
awesome. Good for her.
And the craziest part about this, she represents him. She actually just signed Yasiel Puig too, not long ago, which they show in the video him signing the contract with her. There's a few things here. A, they met at UCLA, right? She told him of her interest, so he was aware of it. And then when the time came, he signed the contract with her. He championed her. And the reason he liked the contract with her is the contract that she's signing with these players is not a typical portion of the contract type agent's contract, right? She basically says, you pay me for the services I render. So if I get you a contract, no matter how big, no matter how small, you just pay me basically flat fee, but it's also customizable to the player. Like she is taking this industry and not only turning it upside down as the first female and youngest female in the industry, but she's turning the industry upside down and how people are looking at these agent contracts.
That's awesome.
And how these players are looking at this. I mean, Yasiel Puig, as much of a dick as he is, it's still a big name get.
Yeah, for sure.
Along with Trevor Bauer. I mean, this is nothing to bat an eyelash at.
Puig's not playing for a team right now. He hasn't signed anybody.
Not right now, but she just signed him. So who knows what kind of magic she can work in the next few months.
Maybe we'll wear an orange and black. We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
The rumors last year, right?
Yeah, right.
All right, mine got it spoiled a little bit early, but Dak Prescott, we all talked about, got a contract. Let's talk a little bit more in detail. $160 million, 126 of it guaranteed. $66 million signing bonus is the highest in NFL history. Of course, that's always the case. But $75 million due in year one.
Ouch.
All that said, it's $42 million a year, which is apparently the new reasonable rate. I don't want to pay quarterbacks that. But also the salary cap hit in year one is $22.2 million instead of the $37.7 million it would have been with the franchise tag. Right. So really, in the short term, even though it's a ton of money, so it hurts Jerry Jones, it kind of helps the team.
Yeah.
Just because of the way it's written.
They needed the help, though.
Yeah. So savings of $15.5 million on salary cap in a short year. So now the questions start. How does it affect Lamar's situation? We kind of already got into. Do they now just trade Dak for Russell Wilson? Was this a sign and trade deal? Will Dak be the best QB in Texas next year? According to Scott, he already is. But, I mean, do they move on? There's a lot of questions for me, so I thought it was pretty interesting that at least something was done in the quarterback realm.
I do think that he will end up being the best quarterback in Texas. I don't think Deshaun Watson will be in Texas at the end of the next year. We'll see.
All right. James, what story you got for us today?
Well, mine wasn't on the list, but I'm going with Blake Griffin. We're going to go a little NBA. He got a buyout between Detroit and himself. And the buyout was for $56.5 million, which is great. And he signed with the Nets, which I took them in my pool at work. And so they just stacked their team to have the best probably 4 players in the league. You got Kevin Durant, Harden,
Crazy
Kyrie,
right.
And now you have Blake Griffin, and he now teams back up with Jordan, not Michael Jordan, but the other Jordan, and he's only going to make $5.9 million with the Nets, and over his career, he has made $255 million. So he's doing well for being 31 years old.
Listen, I think Blake Griffin was a good player when he was young, but he's not dunking over Kias anymore. Like that's not Blake Griffin's game anymore. He's not quite what he was.
But now the chances for the Nets to win the championship is pretty high. So I'll take it.
They're a damn good team. What do you got, Drew?
So the PGA Tour has talked about altering the out-of-bounds rules for the upcoming tournament at TPC Sawgrass, which is in Jacksonville, specifically on the 18th green because it's a major hole. It's like it's the 18th
number
green.
18,
right? It's the final, but it's a you got to go over a little pond, of course. So what he was talking and he was debating hitting it to the 9th hole, which was kind of like put you around the little lake and then put you a lot closer. So your second shot is like a lot easier to get to the cup, which a guy like him is saying something because he's the long ball guy. He's the kind of Happy Gilmore incarnate.
Right.
So that kind of thing, watching some of the clips of him, because I don't watch golf like
he's
that.
goddamn beast mode.
But watching his clips entertains you enough. So maybe the PGA is overstepping a little bit because it's the week before the tournament, and you're just now kind of altering the rules to maybe one guy. No one says they are, but he's said that he's not good. He wouldn't have probably done that shot anyway. So it's kind of much ado about nothing. But I happened to see the ESPN article for it. Literally drove by Sawgrass the other day and it clicked in my head. So that's a nice little topic to bring up.
That's awesome, man. I like it for sure.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
It's like I knew you weren't going to do it.
You started doing it. I was like, all right, I'm going to let him go.
All right, Scott, it's time for the 2-minute warning. I've not looked at these questions yet, so I have no idea what we're talking about. All right, so who's reading the first one?
I got the first one. So it's really simple. It was like if you could have given anybody the franchise team on the Ravens, would you give it or would you just
franchise tag?
Yeah. Are you just happy of what they did today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's anybody that I would have franchise tagged. I don't think that anybody is of value to franchise tag them at this point. Yannick didn't prove enough, as we said. Matt Judon, at this point, if his franchise tag would have been lower, maybe, but it just isn't there. It's not worth it to me. And there's nobody on the offensive side of the ball that at this point that you would have franchise tagged. So it just doesn't make sense to do it to anybody on the team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't think that the franchise tag was ever in play for the Ravens this season just because, one, they're not in financial place to do a franchise tag. If they were going to do that, they would have had to make some other moves to make room for it under the cap. The only guy that would be debatable would have been Matt Judon again. I think he's the more complete outside linebacker. I wouldn't have wanted to lose him over Yannick. But I really think the Ravens made the smart move here by not franchise tagging anybody.
If you were a major league hitter, what would your walkout song be?
Ooh. God, this is a good one.
Living La Vida Loca for you, I guess.
Just to fuck around with the pitcher's head, Highway to the Danger Zone.
That sounds like a Scott answer.
That's definitely a Scott answer.
Yeah, this guy's got dogs named Maverick and Goose.
What do you want me to do? You want to fuck with somebody's head? It's either that or some, I don't know, maybe a Johnny Cash song.
Hell, get rhythm. For me, it's funny. I was a baseball player, big baseball player growing up. Obviously, you were too, Scott. But I used to practice this in my room like a little kid. But it was For Whom the Bell Tolls from Metallica. So I was a big metal fan when I was really young, and I loved Metallica, the Black Album. I still listen to it to this day.
Still fucks with the pitcher's mind.
There were a lot of songs on that album I could have walked out to, but For Whom the Bell Tolls just did it for me, especially that beginning intro, the way it builds up. Pretty fucking awesome. That would have been my song for sure.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, we ended early. That's weird.
Yeah, that is weird. All right, man. Scott, this is a good show. Again, thank you very much, Jeremy Conn, for taking the time to stop in the studio, hooking us up with our new Mo Gabba bobblehead, which, again, go check Jeremy out on social media. He's got all the details about where you can pick one up.
Ryan, show the fans that
really cool.
Mo Gabba. It looks great. The detail on this thing is great. Yeah, we can't hear through your microphone, but make sure you check us out on our website, www.birdlandbs.com. You can check out all of our episodes, learn about each of us, contact us, get yourself some Birdland BS gear, as I always have on. Make sure you also check us out on bigplay.com and birdlandsports.com. Follow us on social media. All of our social media accounts at Birdland BS is how you find us. Make sure you tune in, because once Jeremy posts where that's going to be, we're going to tell you how to get a hold of one of these Mo bobbleheads, and make sure that you donate to that great cause. Again, helping the Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital and everything that they do there. If you want your opinion topic heard on the show, make sure you also reach out to us. Craig, yours is coming up in the after hours, buddy. I know you've been paying attention. Make sure you leave the comments as well. As always, be sure to check out the audio version of the podcast, Spotify, iTunes.
I just saw Mo's name and I had to throw it out there.
Make sure you check out all the different places we can
Throw
check
you
out.
off.
God damn, Brad, Jesus. Make sure you check out all the different places to check out the
Sorry, I said keep doing it. Three
Can't do
Stooges.
it anymore. Oh, man. Thanks for tuning in as always, guys. We'll see you in the after hours. For Fred, myself, Ryan, Drew, James, and Jeremy, huge thank you again, buddy. We'll see you guys next week.
See you. Time for the after party.
Just so you all know, Fred's old enough that he saw the Three Stooges live, not rerun.
Yeah, like the real Three Stooges.
Like in person.
And that's why it's last call for alcohol.
That's why my nickname's Curly. Hey.
It's not because of your hair.
No,
It's non-existent.
I got a lot of hair. Though.
Jesus Christ.
I don't want to hear about your curly hairs.
Just took hair of them the other day. I'm Manscaped.
No, stop. We don't have a sponsorship.
Oh, God. Scott's going to
I know
throw
those
up.
aren't curly.
Scott's going to throw up. We got to stop talking
I said
about it.
stop. We don't have a sponsorship. Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
yeah.
I'm gonna look out for-
Manscaped, hit us up. Hey, I saw Engraven in the chat room. I know he's sponsored by Manscaped. Good looking out,
Congratulations.
Engraven.
I was going to say how you know that, but I'm not.
I watch his videos.
I know.
Watch his
I know.
videos. And not those kind of videos. His YouTube videos. That's what I watch. Team Keep It Clean. Remember that.
Got his own couch.
Ryan, what do we got in the chat room, man? Any good comments out there that we didn't bring up or anything?
Oh, I guess I can go back to my notes, but I kind of fell asleep during the
I
Orioles
saw
segment, So, I guess just without Jamal Caldwell said without the tag for Judon or Yannick, does this make it less likely that we cut Brandon Williams, or you still think it just depends on who's available?
So again, even without Yannick and Matt Judon in the equation, the Ravens still right now are projected to have $17 to $18 million if the cap number falls around like 181. Out of that $17, $18 million, they got to spend 6 of that on rookies that they're going to be bringing in through the draft. They got to sign all their practice squad guys. They got to sign all their restricted free agents that they're bringing back. They're probably going to be in the neighborhood of about $4 million in cap space once all of that stuff is paid for. So I know we want free agents and we want all these guys to add to this team, but if they're going to do it, they're very literally going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. They're going to have to cut the meat. They're going to have to extend guys, rework some contracts. Marcus Peters, you could rework. You know, there's some contracts out there they could make room. But again, if you're going to want to get one of those bigger name guys, you're going to have to make a big dent.
Is Peters a guy that you would rework, though, with the fact that you would extend how long he's here and you don't know how deep his impact's going to be?
I listen, I mean, what's out there that's better to replace him?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, when you
So
do that.
then, yes.
He might be a better safety than he is a corner when he gets older because you're okay that he's gambling.
Rod Woodson
Sure,
2.0.
fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
I'm
Fair
fine
enough.
with that.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
There's an Oriole question here with some words I don't understand. You can read that one.
So, Oriole question. Okay, under July 4th, Yusniel Diaz gets the call up. I'm going to go over July 4th. I think he's another September call because Scott and I talked about this a little bit last week. There's a log jam in the outfield, and Yusniel Diaz, as much as I want to see him up here, because we need to start reaping the benefits of that Manny Machado trade, and he was the prime jewel in that trade, right? So we need to see him up here.
What, 3 years?
Yeah, right. Yeah, this would be the third season, right? So we need. The thing with him is, I want to see him consistently do it at the minor league level for a couple of months, and then bring him up. I like the outfield that we have right now. I mean, are you moving Ryan Mountcastle out of there? No. Are you moving Austin Hayes out of there? No. I think Cedric Mullins is a good rotation piece who's doing really well so far in spring training. I like him. Anthony Santander, unless you trade him, you're not taking him out. He's your left fielder. Exactly. So,
and
to your point, Stevie Wilkerson, who is the super utility guy, the new Ryan Flaherty of the team. Who are you substituting out? Who are you bringing up for Yusniel Diaz?
And then you're taking a chance on not having enough infielders.
If they get out there in the first 2 months of the season, Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, and these guys fall flat on their face, does he get called up to see how he can do? Because I do like his versatility. He's one of the only outfielders that can truly play all three positions, in my opinion. He's done it at the minor league level, and he's done it at a high level. So I like that from a versatility standpoint, but he still has some things he needs to work through with the bat at the minor league level.
I'll disagree. I think Austin Hayes could play all three positions.
He hasn't done it, though.
He threw somebody out the other night from left field.
No. I'm saying he hasn't played all three on a consistent basis in the minor leagues. Yusniel has been all over the place. They've used him everywhere, and he's been good no matter where he's been out there defensively.
Well, just to stay on the Orioles,
we need Davis to go away. Yes, we do.
Yeah. No, that's part of it, but just like the Angelos talk about if the Orioles are staying and going, don't believe that shit. What the fuck is Chris Davis hasn't even played one game? What's the point of even having? Just send him home. Just pay him and stay home. It's just mind-boggling.
I haven't understood it for the past 3 seasons.
You would think if you want this guy to work on this, or maybe get some bats in or whatever, put him in every fucking day. But if you're not gonna play him, just send him home.
Right.
I think
they just want him to say, "Hey, coach, I'm gonna just go home." I don't know, but this is another thing that gives me
I don't know how much of it in spring. This is the thing.
Take up a spot
in spring training. I don't know how much of it is Hyde, and I don't know how much of it is Elias and the pressure that he may be getting from ownership. But I think, if I'm being honest, if they're saying, all right, you have full reign of who you want to see, I just need to, I'm going to give you a list of guys that I want to see. If that's what Elias is telling him, then Hyde's going, all right, Chris Davis isn't on this list of guys that you have to see and want to see, so I don't feel like putting him out there.
Yeah, but nobody play 2 games?
In reality, he's not going to see the field.
Not doing that this year.
He's not going to see the field other than in a DH role anyways, because it's going to be Trey Mancini out there as a first baseman.
Because it's strikeout.
He's taking up a spot.
No, I know that.
That's valuable.
No, I get that, and 100%. The same problem with him is the same problem with having Felix Hernandez up here. The same problem with having Matt Harvey up here. They're blocking growth from some of these younger guys and opportunities. That's what pisses me off.
I can see Felix, even though I wasn't a big fan, but apparently he had a good spring training
last
year.
Give me 2 weeks and I can get you out there throwing 84, 85.
I think
that's terrible.
The way that Felix, I think he can let it rip. Most of these guys don't even throw what they want to throw. They just practice and work on stuff that they just want to tune up.
No warm up. I threw 84 at Dave & Buster's. No joke.
That machine was broken.
Again, 6 feet is not 60 feet 6 inches.
Look, they're accustomed their machines to the distance. It's still reading the miles per hour, no matter what it is.
Just like those punching machines, you punch 900 pounds per square inch. Sure, sure, Fred.
All right, Joe Carloto's got a great question here.
Yeah, what do we got?
How great is that Duke won't make the NCAA tournament?
Oh, Ryan doesn't care anything about baseball. He cares about basketball.
That's why he's.
I don't care about your Dave & Buster's trip, bro. I wasn't invited.
Oh wait, he didn't get the invite either.
He took the guy from the game store.
Oh, he did. He took the critical
Fucking knew it.
That's what happens when you talk back to the host. That's what happens.
Your ass is muted, Ryan.
How great is it?
Hey, Ryan.
In the car.
Ryan. No, he took a chick there and said, look, I'm hitting off 89 miles an hour, baby. I'm calling me tomorrow. Look at this bod.
Yes, Joe, it is great that Duke's not making the tournament.
Yeah, the ACC is nothing like they used to be. I'm sure that they miss having Maryland in their conference for sure.
Ryan, we'll get this in because I know that you were chomping at the bit. You even put it in the outro and last call. What the hell happened with Whole Foods?
Oh, God. Whole Foods, get out of here. You can... I didn't know you could copyright infringe on foods, but they literally are stealing Burger Cookie's money. You don't have enough money? Like, you're Amazon, for God's sake. Amazon bought you. You don't have enough money yet. They're selling Burger Cookie knockoffs. Literally says, the Baltimore cookies you've learned to love with our great ingredients. You just said you're selling somebody else's cookies. Come on, man. Some things... I know it's just food, but some things are above imitation, and Burger Cookies are one of those things.
Or they call like Charm City Cookies or something?
Yeah, Charm City Cookies. Yeah, that's what they're calling them. Charm City Cookies. Get out of here. And I hope they're doing this shit in Philly, and they're like, yeah,
Charm City Cookies sounds like a strip club.
Brotherly love steaks, and they get burned
I knew
out.
cookies at Charm
stop
City.
stealing people's shit.
I knew a Cookies down on the block. What are you talking about?
I tell you what, if they do allow
She had good ingredients.
50%
Yes, he
at
did.
the stadium, I'm hoping to be there working.
Yeah.
I tell you what, to be perfectly honest, if it's a 50% stadium at the Orioles, you're going to see me at a lot more games than I was when there was 100% availability. I don't even care. I know I'm going to pay maybe 3 times the amount of money for tickets.
Well, did you
And
see
I'll
some
still
of
be
the
at more
some of
games.
the opening day tickets for the Red Sox? The cheapest ticket was like $350.
You might not see me at opening day. I'm just saying you'll see me in May.
Okay.
Joe says, how about lower beer prices to sell more? Manny would have never stayed. Listen, I'm not just saying I use Manny as an example. The point is that selling the name rights to the stadium brings in revenue and a decent amount of revenue every year if you're looking to supplement.
Craig Zero said,
easy
Scott,
money.
did you get my question?
Yeah, so I had it up here. So this was what Craig said to Fred and I, and this was today. After listening to EDC and Harbaugh, it seems very clear that they are too dependent on free agency to see what they can add to the roster, but they also said indirectly to Giro, if the scheme doesn't evolve, players that come won't help us at all, and I believe we have the pieces to be better at the passing game with Duvernay and Prochet, and making our O-line better doesn't matter if Zeus Jr. leaves or not. If fixing the O-line and involving more of our wide receivers in the still makes us 32nd in passing, who's to blame, Lamar or Giro? So he's saying if you fix the O-line and you involve the wide receivers more, is it still Giro or is it Lamar?
If we're still 32nd, we still fail,
If you still fail.
It depends. It depends on what the passing game looks like. If it's still the same route concepts and whatnot, then it's Giro. But
Right.
if it's Lamar not being efficient with his passing because now they're throwing the ball down the field more and he's missing his target, then it's on Lamar. So it just depends on
It depends on the situation.
On the situation.
And as far as the he said EDC and Harbaugh, it seemed after listening to him, it seems very clear they're too dependent on free agency. I'll fucking say that's completely off base.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. That's never been the Ravens' MO. The Ravens have only really gone big in the draft big in free agency when they've missed big in the draft, which has been very, very rare. I don't think you'll see them go big in the draft in fantasy. In free agency this year. They don't have the money to do that. I think that they'll do some dumpster dives when these teams start to cut some guys and
Coupon cut.
makes the coupon
Jeremy's
deals.
coupons.
I think they'll make some smart deals like they do every year. I think the Pernell McPhee example that Jeremy Conn was talking about earlier, like that's a prime example of bringing somebody in who fit the defense, who knew the defense, was a cheap value add, and he was impactful in his year here.
Yeah, he was. But to Jeremy's point about doing it again with him is the fact that Purnell's not going to be an every down guy.
No, he's not paid to be an every down guy.
Right, exactly. But you need him to come in and have some type of impact on the field and off the field. He has to be in the room with these guys, working and giving them, the pep talks they need and saying, here's what you're looking at. Look at this in the film. Look at this in the film. That's what has to happen if you're going to do something like that.
I do 100% agree with you, though. I think that this offense can take the next step, even with the internal personnel that they have right now. I do believe in Devin Duvernay, and I do believe in James Prochet. I think both of those guys are good route runners. I do think both of them have great hands, which is something that we've been praying for a decade now, is receivers with good hands. Well, we finally got that. You got to give them opportunity, though. You can't have these guys sitting on the sidelines because they do you no good out there. You got to get them on the field, and I think Jeremy's point earlier, Duvernay has always been the plan to be the replacement for Willie Snead, and I think we'll see that this year.
Also real quick, on football, that Dak deal, like, to think that they couldn't get done last year, that kind of money after he got hurt is ridiculous. But also, someone was just scratching the surface saying maybe Jerry Jones is working out a TV deal that's going to help pay for that. But they're also already $3 million over the cap right now.
Right.
So, and I personally think Pollard's going to be seeing a lot more of the backfield than Zeke this year.
Well, so to your point with the cap number, the $3 million they were over the cap was prior to them signing this deal with Dak. So like Ryan was saying earlier, I think it frees up almost $20 million or $15 million. So now they'll be $12 million under the cap from where they were last year, which gives them a little bit more leeway. But again, that $12 million, they're going to have to spend on the draft. They're going to have to spend on practice squad guys. So
scroll up is just a hair right. I'm seeing this, and I'm actually looking at pictures. Adit says, did any Orioles fans see the Chris Davis poster in WandaVision? And apparently there is.
The fuck out.
There are apparently Chris Davis posters. There's a Chris Davis poster that's reflected in WandaVision.
Really? I haven't watched WandaVision. Don't know anything about it.
It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I'm not
It's
a
pretty good.
superhero. thing.
Nah, it's good.
All I'm saying is these big contracts for these quarterbacks come every year, and we got 2 more years of Lamar on contracts. I don't think that they're going to extend him before it's over, just like this. And if none of these top 5 quarterbacks get to a Super Bowl in that time or win a Super Bowl in that time, people need to stop paying them. You can't just keep paying one player half your fucking salary. It doesn't work.
I like to agree with you a little bit on that.
It works in Green Bay.
But then you see the cases of where when a team has jack shit at quarterback, then they fucking absolutely suck, and they
You
maybe
can
win
oh,
2
you
or
can
3
be
chances-
above average. You can't win with that quarterback.
That's not true. That's not true. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are figuring out a way to do that now with Pat Mahomes just signing his big contract. And the Kansas City Chiefs will be in contention for the Super Bowl any year that Pat Mahomes is healthy. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson's is Pat Mahomes, but there are generational quarterbacks that can do that. And you got to remember, too, if the Ravens can work out a deal now, like talking this year, that extends Lamar 4 or 5 extra years beyond that, this cap over those 4 or 5 years is going to increase. And it's pretty substantial.
The problem is
over
how
the next
close
couple years.
Dak is to Patrick Mahomes.
But here,
No, I
but
get
here-
that.
Here's the other thing I would say, though.
What's the other option? So what's the alternative is putting this guy that Snoop that's been on the practice squad and saying, here we go, here's our quarterback of the future. And then what if he does good? Then you're I don't
you
know.
draft 2 quarterbacks every year.
You can't do that.
Here's the thought process, right? Name the last team to have a non-top 10 quarterback to win the Super Bowl.
Nick Foles.
Well, that's a trick question because if they're a top 10 quarterback, I can name you the ones that
Really? Was
weren't
Trent
getting
Dilfer a
paid.
top 10 quarterback when he won the Super Bowl?
Eagles.
There's been a lot of things changed. Defenses don't control the game like they used to.
I'm just saying, I'm with Ryan. You know, like this Dak deal is going to screw the Ravens, and we already got.
But we knew that
Hold
this was
on.
coming.
I understand, but it made it even worse because we all know or think that Lamar is better than Dak, so he's going to have to get more money than Dak.
But it depends on
But-
what type of deal Lamar's looking
but
for. It
then-
depends on whether he's looking for long-term or short-term.
Still
Jeremy's
40
point
million.
worth.
I think it's going to be an overpaid contract, just like Joe Flacco was. Like, Cousins was an overpaid contract, and
Name
the
me-
But in all
Redskins-
honesty,
the
Joe
Redskins-
Flacco's contract didn't handicap us from being able to do other moves.
What top 5
I understand,
quarterback
but he
contract
wasn't worth
worked
that
out?
money.
Which one?
What?
Top 5 quarterback contract worked out?
Aaron Rodgers.
Look at
No,
Matthew
it's not.
Stafford.
What has it done?
because
Matthew Stafford's had
but
the
see the
day.
thing is
When he got the contract, they did win the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl.
I get your point.
That
but
year when they
a
didn't
lot
have
of
to
then a lot of
re-
people
re-
like to
anybody else.
harken to the point that Brady takes pay cuts. Well, he don't fucking take pay cuts. He takes it all in a signing bonus.
Right.
Now, yes, okay. Could other quarterbacks do that? Sure, okay. Well, Mahomes just proven it. I mean, they paid him after.
But
they
also,
won
you
the
look at
Super
the
Bowl,
Josh Allen got dressed as far as Aaron Rodgers. You got the Russell Wilsons as won his rookie contract, winning Super Bowl. It's these newer, cheaper options
at
where you can have
Sam
staff.
Yeah,
around
but
them.
those are only going to sustain you so long because those rookie contracts are going to expire, and these top tier quarterbacks are going to wind up needing and costing more and more and more.
This tests the moxie of how strong your GM and your front office is, and if there's any organization in professional football that I trust that with, it's the Ravens. Yeah,
I just don't see spending that money because you look at the Sam Bradfords, you look at the what's his face that went to the Rams, Matthew Stafford. Nick Foles getting these monies after a Super Bowl. Like these quarterbacks, they need to adjust these contracts and like you're gonna get your money in these endorsements and stuff like that. Like Tom Brady, if you watch. Tom Brady made a lot of money like after his rookie deal. He signed a good contract. After that, he took less.
married a model,
and to say, hey, give me some pieces to the team.
Sugar
but
mama.
also when he filmed, when he did commercials, he's like, hey, include my teammates, and then give my money towards them to pay it. Like he did his cut. Lamar ain't taking that.
This is Lamar's first contract. Like he's not going to do that.
I'm not saying Lamar
Nobody
should take
would.
a cut.
But
I'm
look-
saying we shouldn't pay him. I mean, I don't think that he should
Lamar's going to be
Then
overpaid.
you're just going to go through this cyclical process where you're trying to find a
just feels
quarterback to
like-
replace him.
You might as well be looking at offensive coordinators again.
The fact that you found Lamar in this draft and that you were successful with that doesn't happen every time you take a quarterback.
But
how many quarterbacks
a lot
fail?
more? Like when we
No,
were,
it doesn't.
Yes, when we were younger, a new Pro Bowl
Okay,
quarterback
so
came
Sam
in.
Darnold is working out for the Jets.
So it's
No,
not
it's not.
foolproof. It's never
That's-
going to be
that's my
foolproof.
It could be the system. He
It's
could
never
get
gonna be
traded.
foolproof.
He could go to the
You don't believe that. I'm on
49ers
your
and
side. Don't
succeed.
look at me.
Look, here's the deal. We're talking about a lot of fucking what ifs, right? What historically has happened in the NFL is what have you done for me lately?
And this
That's the contract. It's I don't pay for what I think I'm going to get. It's paying for what you've done. I don't care what anybody says. You guys are paid in the NFL for what you've done. They are not paid. No quarterback, no player in the NFL is paid for what they're going to do. They are paid for what they've done.
I'll take
That's what it
Fitzpatrick.
comes down to.
True to an extent.
So-
Like
they're,
what? Okay,
they're
so
drafted and paid on what they think they're going to do.
That's it. But that 4-year window is the only time that happens.
what I'm talking about.
I know, but what I'm saying is, once you get that, you can have, if you don't have the same scheme, if Lamar goes to a different organization, there's a pretty high likelihood that doesn't work out if it's not a similar scheme.
My only thing is in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was like every 5 years a new Pro Bowl quarterback popped up. In the last decade, every year a Pro Bowl quarterback showed up. I mean, not every year, but every other year.
I get what you're saying.
It's
Carson
just
Wentz got
different
paid
now all of a
and
sudden. I
he
don't know
hasn't done
why.
anything. Carson Wentz got paid. He didn't do anything. Goff got paid. He didn't do anything. So why pay these quarterbacks that are not doing anything?
And Russell Wilson's great, but they paid him, and there was no one left to win with.
Why pay a shitload
That's a
of
shit organization.
Why pay a shitload of money to a guy like Aaron Donald and still not make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl? It's still putting a large chunk of money.
I understand the balance of things, and I understand that you want to have balance on your roster as far as money because you want to be consistently good everywhere. But the difference in a successful team versus a non-successful team is the quarterback position. We talk about this even with the Terps, Ryan. How much of a difference did Talia bring to this team? Without Talia, this team, I'm sorry, Mike Loxley is not the fucking god. This team does not look what it looked like without Talia here, right? He doesn't do what he did last year with Josh Jackson.
I will never argue the quarterback's not the most important position.
But you're arguing not to pay him.
But that they are more frequently available now, and therefore
They're
you shouldn't
not,
be empty in the bank.
Right now, Cam Newton is one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league.
He was a
I don't
And
know
he's
if that's
terrible.
true.
He is.
I think that we had 3 quarterbacks on our team better than him.
I don't believe that at all. He's one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league right now, and he's terrible.
He was.
Right? Sam Darnold comes here. To Scott's point, I think Sam Darnold's a decent quarterback. He doesn't win a Super Bowl here.
The Patriots go to the playoffs again next year. They lost on purpose. They had everybody sit out this year.
I think it's 3 years before you see the Patriots in the Super Bowl again.
But now
Or
you-
anywhere
Not
in the
Super Bowl.
playoffs.
They're making the playoffs
Now
next
you
year.
see teams,
No,
though,
no
like,
way.
you look at teams now,
way.
like
I'll bet you a Mo bobblehead.
I
Every
agree with
sports
that.
team.
Man, I've talked about this at nauseum, and I agree with you on overpaying for certain things. And I think running back is one of those positions you don't overpay because running backs are more of a dime a dozen. There are very few out there, very few, that are the exception to the rule. How many running backs play beyond 30 years old? Not very many.
So
right?
here's the only way that you fix this in the NFL and really in any sport, but especially in the NFL. If we all are saying quarterbacks are of that high value, right? Mm-hmm. Then you look at them, think about all of our positions at the jobs that we work at, right? The quote unquote the most important person, right? The leader is the one that's paid the most. Forget the executives, right? But the leaders, the managers.
But it's double, not 12 times.
I can tell you that there's some companies out there that I would completely disagree with you with.
I mean, you're the CEO, but the ones you work with on a daily basis, it's not that somebody's 12 times your salary.
But it's your impact. It's a difference. Yes, it is a tough comparison. But what my point is there's a difference between a manager and a sub-manager. I think back to my days at a retail environment where I was I'll call it a sub-manager. I was paid way less than half. It was probably less than a quarter of what the store manager was paid, right? So at that point, it's because my impact, yes, I'm doing the dirty work. I'm doing the grunt work as an offensive lineman, right? But he's the one that's ultimately responsible for the play calls when it comes to
He's
making
learning from
sure
Jeremy Conn with the analogies.
Well, just to let you know, I think we're going to overpay for Lamar Jackson, and we're going to suffer. I'd rather have.
I agree that we're going to overpay.
I'd rather
for him,
see a Fitzpatrick.
but I'd rather that.
I'd
be
rather
it.
see a Fitzpatrick in here get a decent wide. Hold on,
He'll be 47 years old.
No, I'm not talking about like next year. I'm just saying I'd rather have a journeyman like Fitzpatrick in our system have a great wide receiver to throw to and great tight end and decent running back in my system than to overpay Lamar that basically he can only just run in this system. And if you heard Tolia in Miami, everybody said he wanted Fitzpatrick as their quarterback. They didn't want him in there.
I think Lamar
is also a rookie.
I think Lamar can throw. I'm just going to put that out there. I just don't know if I want somebody else to give him $50 million.
There's one Patrick Mahomes.
True. So
like
Lamar Jackson is a
let's
top.
go get a Josh
Lamar
Allen.
Jackson is a top 5 quarterback. No.
if you need a quarterback, you need to throw the
Top
ball. Josh
7.
Allen can
Answer
throw the
that
ball.
question. Lamar Jackson is a top 5 quarterback.
2 years ago.
ago.
Top
Yeah.
five.
Top
because
five?
I don't think he's top
Bit of a
5.
down year.
He's a
Top
bubble.
10.
He's a bubble.
He ain't no top 5.
Give me 5 quarterbacks better than Lamar Jackson right now.
So what did you do last
Not
year?
off their
Watson.
past, not off of what they
Number-
could
Right
have
now.
been, or right
It's
now.
easy.
Right now.
It's
5
easy.
quarterbacks.
Easy.
Okay. Go ahead, Drew, or go ahead, James.
All right, number 1, we're going to go with Aaron Rodgers.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Patrick Mahomes.
See, you guys, Aaron Rodgers,
Okay.
Kyler Murray,
No,
Justin Hubert.
no,
Yeah. Okay.
no. You're anything with. First of all, Kyler Murray is not better than Lamar Jackson. Justin Hubert, you're
Let me-
basing
let
off
me-
of potential, not what they are right now. I'm
me-
not saying Justin Hubert
Lamar-
in 5
Lamar
years.
hasn't done it.
Herbert,
Let me-
whatever.
Sorry.
Lamar
5
didn't
years
do
from now, I'm
anything
not
last
saying
year.
that he's not going to be better than him, but right now he's
Let
not.
me take a
Lamar
stab at
doesn't-
this. All right.
Good.
Aaron Rodgers,
Okay.
Tom Brady. This man just fucking won a Super Bowl. Like,
Okay.
you can't argue that.
Yeah, that was
All
a
right.
hell of a pass rush he put on.
You still got to score
He
touchdowns to win
still
a game.
picked who was getting the
I'll
touchdowns.
give
in
it
that
to
game.
him. I'll give you
Literally
him.
handpicked them.
So, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes,
Okay.
arguably Russell Wilson.
Nope.
I think there's a bubble there where you could do Russell, Kyler, and Lamar
Okay.
all in a
Even if I
flip-flop.
give you him 4, who else? He's a top 5 quarterback. No matter how you
It's
try to
5
cut it.
7.
Hold on.
You might say Watson,
I can't.
but he's a
I'm
backup.
I'm saying now, right? You're saying right.
I was waiting for him to say Watson.
He was going to do it.
He'll never come off
No,
of that.
I won't. I won't
I
come
put
off
him
of that. You
close.
can't finish. I won't come off
But
that.
who are you
Could win
giving
a
me? You're
Super
not
Bowl this
giving
year,
me
he's not
anybody.
coming off of that.
There's nobody that you can say without
because-
putting your foot in your mouth that Lamar Jackson is worse
Because
than.
the only other bubble person is going to be a guy that might not play next year. That there's a high likelihood he
Drew
might
Brees?
not play next year. In Drew Brees.
No.
Get out of here. He's
Again,
done.
you're basing that
Yeah,
off
that's
of
not
what he
true.
did,
No,
not
he's
what he is right
done.
now. He's 40-something years old, and he's
At
nowhere
40-something
near
year-
what he
And
was.
at 40-something years old, he also got a team to the playoffs this year.
So
did Lamar.
Right. And he was the MVP 2 years ago.
Yeah, but these are
All right.
people that are throwing the ball. I haven't seen Lamar throw anything last year.
What my
me in
point
the
in,
passing
my point
game.
in saying this is, if you can't get him out
You're
of your
saying-
top 5, you're going to pay him
You're
top
saying,
5
you're
quarterback
saying
money.
he's a guaranteed top 5.
Yes.
But you're not saying so you're saying
I'm not
there's
saying
nowhere
he's
he's a
1. I'm
bubble.
not saying he's 2. I'm telling you he's a top 5 quarterback, and you can argue where you put him
And
in
if
that
we
top 5.
paid
I don't
him
care about
number
that.
5
He's
money,
gonna get
I'd be
5.
fine with it. But pay him the fifth
That's
best
not
contract.
the way that's not the way the
I
market
know
works.
that's why I don't like it. If we could pay
Okay,
him
we
the
don't like a
fifth.
lot of things in life, but you don't just say, well,
What-
I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it.
What did Jeremy tell you? His option was not show up, so you just don't pay him. That's the option.
Hold on.
You either
And
do
do
it or
what?
you don't do it.
Hey,
I'm just going to be
Fred,
stubborn and not pay for him
Fred.
and hope for the best.
Fred,
Fuck
if-
that. No, because we're going to be a terrible organization.
Hey, Fred,
Draft
if,
love.
if you look,
Hey, I'm on your
hold
side.
on,
getting
Fred,
angry.
if you look, the top 5 moneymaker in quarterbacks are shitty quarterbacks that are overpaid. You got the Goffs, you got the Wentz,
Cousins.
you got Cousins. You paid all this money, they ain't doing jack shit, and they got
That's
paid.
exactly
I'm
what
not
worried
saying
about.
that there aren't bad
I
quarterbacks out there
understand that,
getting
but
overpaid.
I
That's
think
not the argument.
Lamar's
My point
gonna
is
get
Lamar
overpaid.
Jackson isn't a bad quarterback.
I
Yeah,
also
but
worry about
he
the
ain't-
Chris Davis issue. You give somebody money, they're not hungry anymore.
Yeah.
They're just done. They're like, I'm set for life.
So
What
you
do I
think
do?
that Lamar
Please don't
Jackson
ever
is
put that
Chris
in the same
Davis?
conversation.
I'm just saying there are so
Get
many
out of
options
here.
that.
As a
Once you're set,
quarterback,
you're set.
I want a
Jesus,
quarterback
you are
that
just
had a role.
arguing for the
Attention
sake
to
of
things.
arguing
No,
at this
There's-
point.
there's-
Because your
hold
point
on,
makes no
hold on,
sense.
No, the piece is there are too many X factors right now to be able to warrant. You cannot say that if you paid Lamar, you can't say he's wrong. You legit
is wrong.
No, you can't.
I just said it.
Fred. I'm telling you right now. If
Here we go. He's gonna talk loud
no,
again.
I'm serious. You cannot say that because
right.
if Lamar Jackson,
You can't say Deshaun Watson's a backup fucking quarterback, but you said that.
I did because he can't finish fucking drives.
Oh, get out of here.
Anyway, you can't. The reason I'm saying you can't say that, just like you want to argue that I can't say what I said about Deshaun Watson, you don't know what the Lamar Jackson doesn't say. I got paid. All right, I got paid.
That is the risk you take with any player you
is why I
sign
don't
to
want to
any
take it.
contract.
Dak could throw the ball though. He has a hell of a ball.
All right. Well, we
Lamar.
had a
But it's
nice
not the
tight
$49
show and a really
ball.
long after hours.
yes.
Lamar cannot throw the
I
deep
love the
ball.
arguing, so I kind of want to keep it going.
All right, let's get out of here.
I want a quarterback that can throw the ball.
Unless
not
you want to
just
keep
run.
going.
I mean, I cannot. I am like blown away right now that you guys think this way. Like, it's absolutely absurd
If
to
he
me.
was a running
How
back-
long have we wanted a franchise quarterback here? We have been fucking begging
You
and
had
pleading
one.
for the
You
Orioles.
overpaid him.
No, we didn't have a franchise quarterback.
you
We
just
had a
wanna keep
good
saying it,
quarterback
though.
who would have been terrible in any other organization.
Another
Our
overpaid.
organization made him look good. He bet on himself and he got there. My point
We
is,
bet on him. We paid him. We bet on him.
he bet on himself.
We bet on him because we paid him.
And
He
Lamar,
bet on himself, and that's how he got
Got
paid. He won a
Super
Super
Bowls.
Bowl.
and Lamar's
Oh,
could do the
baby.
same thing with his MVP that he has. He's like he
Look,
bet
I'm not
on
saying-
himself
look,
and won it. His
All right, so
He
let me
bet on himself.
Let
He
me
was in the second
clarify
year of his
something.
rookie contract.
Let me clarify
Different
something.
situation.
Do I think we should take Lamar Jackson as our franchise quarterback? Yes. I think what Ryan is saying is a valid point, that there is a lot to be said that we don't know what comes of this. We're talking about a window.
We don't
What
know.
if your window closes this year? What if this is the year that you
Him
go, we
signing
can't pay
is
it?
the window.
What if Patrick Mahomes gets hit by a car tomorrow because of that
All right, now
fear? Do you not
you
sign
want to talk
him?
about me jumping to extremes. Now
But
you're
my
jumping
point
to
is, there's
extremes.
what ifs about fucking everything. If you worried about the what ifs on these contracts with everything, you wouldn't sign anybody. They wouldn't have signed Patrick Mahomes because of the what ifs of whatever. That is the risk you take. Lamar Jackson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. We just went through this. He's a top 5 quarterback. You pay your top 5 quarterback top 5 money. He's going to get over $40 million a year. Suck it up and fucking deal with it. Be a good organization and build around him.
Go ahead,
top
Drew.
5 running back.
Now, I'm going to go off of you, and I'm going to go off this window thing, because I always hear about fucking windows, and I'm tired of hearing about fucking windows. If you're a good fucking team that can draft well, that can manage free agency and get those bargain bins, which the Ravens can fucking do, and you can stay relevant, even though you have your dips and years, you can stay fucking relevant, or you could be the goddamn Dolphins and Jacksonville that has those dips where they win 2 games every year for 3 straight years, then fine, do that. But I'm sorry, if you got a guy that can help you stay there and maybe get you to a Super Bowl, maybe he doesn't. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick can fucking give you a Super Bowl. Not fucking happening. You can't keep having a player like Lamar and go, oh, well, look what Wentz did. He got paid and he ain't done
Right.
shit.
The what ifs.
There's more people that got overpaid than quarterbacks that have got paid and they're worth
Same
it.
as players on anywhere
So
else
it's
on the
not
fucking
worth it.
field.
There
It's-
will
I
be
get it.
always another quarterback.
But my point being,
Just
back
like
to my
you can
point.
plug and play Williams on the defense. You can plug and play a quarterback in the system.
No,
nowadays.
you can't.
Yeah, you can.
No,
Nowadays,
you
get
can't.
More quarterbacks coming out of the draft than before. Most drafts, you'd be like, you get 1 or 2. Now you can get like 10 to be your franchise quarterback nowadays.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can.
No, you can't. It is such a gamble in the draft.
The college game is so much different now.
It's a gamble. And again, they drafted Lamar Jackson for a purpose, right? They went all in on this guy. They traded back in the first round to get this guy. They changed their entire offense around this guy. They went from pocket happy, sitting in the pocket Joe Flacco to a completely different offense around Lamar Jackson. They're going to pay this guy.
So let me ask you this question, right? Are you paying him the top 5 money
I don't need to hear the rest of it. Yes.
right now?
Yeah. I think now is the time to cash in because if you wait, if he does go out next year and wins you a Super Bowl, he's getting paid 50.
Okay. Fair enough. But what if he doesn't? What if this team sets up and they set up with this different scheme that they're, we all hope that there's going to be
a different scheme. It's just going to be an adjustment.
Adjusted scheme, and it's not successful, and it shits the bed for whatever reason. It's a game of what ifs.
This was Craig Zero's question, and it depends on the situation. If Lamar Jackson, if you don't sign him, and Lamar Jackson comes in and falls flat on his face, I'm reevaluating where I'm at with things. If he comes in there and they try to show that he can pass the ball and he can't, I'm reevaluating things.
So let me ask you this. What is the true harm in waiting until a quarter of the way through the season before you really make that top 5 quarterback offer? What's the harm?
Say it again?
What's the harm in waiting until a quarter of the way through the season? Make sure that you've set him up for success, right? If that's what we all hope is going to happen, is we set him up for success. You get him a quarter of the way through the year and let him show the continued evolution.
I don't have a problem with that. I just think the more he puts on film, the better.
The more expensive it's going to get.
It just keeps going up and up and up and up and up, and it gets closer and closer.
But
to
if
$50 million.
if I can get a quarter of the way through the season, and it's going to cost me $5 million more a year, I'm fine with that.
Let me just simplify it real quick, and I'll ask both of you this.
Okay.
Forget money for a second. Do you want Lamar Jackson on the team?
Yes.
Sure.
Doesn't sound like it.
Not to overpay.
No,
Hold on. Do you want Lamar Jackson on the team?
In a vacuum, of course, but it's not a vacuum.
Then if you're going to have him on this team, you've got to do it soon. Because again, 43 turns into 47, turns into 48 real quick.
I'm just saying
that's my point.
43
million sounds like a lot right now, but again, he's got this year in a low cap number, next year on another low cap number. Before that contract really becomes relevant. And then when it becomes relevant, it's had 2 years of that cap to grow. So as much as 43 would suck this year, 43 million in 3 years is not as bad. You have your franchise quarterback.
What is 4 games going to cost you? Is 4 games worth that value to make sure you say, you know what, hey, we're having these talks, let's do this, and he's succeeding? If we go, let me ask you this. If you give him that contract extension and you go 0-4, Are you seriously not questioning what you just did with your quarterback?
That's a big what if.
I understand that, but
anybody would.
But my point is,
it's what the Philadelphia Eagles are going through right now.
But what my point is I'm putting out there the contract extension does not need to happen at this exact second. I understand what you're saying, and if you want to pay him that top 5 money right now, go ahead.
If it keeps,
but I want to see that when I put true weapons around him, or I give him really valuable, put him in a real valuable situation that he can continue to succeed. I'm willing to put forth that little bit of extra money to ensure the insurance on what I'm doing. I'm not saying I'm not signing him right now, but I'm not signing him to top 5 money when you couldn't beat a guy. And I know it's not quarterback versus quarterback. I get this. But your team couldn't beat a guy in the playoffs that's not a top 5 quarterback.
Who?
I don't know. It just doesn't make business sense.
Because
if
you're Josh Allen.
Josh Allen's
He outplayed Josh Allen and Ryan Tannehill, though.
Who? Lamar?
Stats-wise, he outplayed both of them.
Who? Lamar?
He outplayed Allen
he
and
didn't.
Tannehill. Stats-wise.
No, he
He's
didn't.
going to be your leader of your
No, he
team. He
didn't.
needs to lead in all
Josh
facets. of the
Allen
game.
had better numbers than
Hit
Lamar.
myself against a brick wall.
Look, hey,
Look, I'm not disagreeing with you that he's not there. I'm just saying there is validity
My-
to the
my
idea
point-
of waiting to sign him.
There's not though, because if your plan is
okay,
to
then if
keep-
there's
hold
not,
on.
then why? If there's
your
not, then why
plan is
hasn't
to-
EDC signed him?
Because it takes 2 to sign.
Yeah, it's starting. Like I'm not
I
saying
want to see
I don't know
Josh
when
Allen's
it's going to happen.
contract.
It could happen tomorrow. It could happen at the end of next year. I don't know when it's going to happen.
I'd
My
rather
point
see
is
Josh Allen's
this whole
contract.
discussion started on because of the cap number, how much money you would invest in him, and everybody and Ryan mainly said, don't spend that kind of money on a quarterback. Rinse and repeat. Find another guy in a quarterback because they're a dime a dozen now, apparently. That's not the case, one. Secondly, if your plan, and that's why I asked you this question, do you want Lamar Jackson in the fold? Okay, you both answered yes. If that means $43 million now, or you want to play it safe and say, well, let me give 4 games. Let me see how he does in the first 4 games in this season. Well, if he fucking lights the world on fire in those first 4 games, now it's $47 million. Now you fucked yourself even more. When you were worried about money from square one, now you've cost yourself $4 million waiting for 4 games. Is that worth it to you? That you're going to pay him?
If I'm being honest, it depends because it depends on what we do. It depends on what we do with the rest of the team this year. Because if we give him the weapons and we go
They
out,
can't afford to give him the weapons.
yeah.
And that's
can't
going to
get-
get
you
better
can't
when
get
you give him $50 million?
No. Again, the money's got to shift. The money's got to. We've been talking about this for 2 years. The money's got to shift. They've been spending so much money on the defensive side of the ball. That's now got to shift. If
The
you
money's
want to see
gotta
the
shift.
weapons around Lamar, you got to pay for those weapons.
no, you don't necessarily have to pay for him if you're gonna draft. You were talking about the first 4 years of the contract, the first 4 years.
It's just the
first 5
quarterback.
years.
The quarterback cap.
I'm a wide
hit.
receiver. You go get a top end
Hey,
wide
Scott,
receiver.
Scott, or you go to Lamar and be like, hey, let's just play out your contract, then we'll pay you so we can get some better
It's
players
just the
in
fact
here.
that the quarterback cap hit is growing exponentially faster than the actual cap. Every year, the quarterback takes up more and more of the space
So
for the
maybe-
top 15 of them. Not even the top 5.
And then you're also paying your left tackle the high
Because
money
that
too. Because
shows
they
the
need to protect him.
importance of the position and that it's not flooded with talent out on the market because these guys earn that money because they are so rare.
All right, so then the defensive side of the ball isn't as valuable. This is
I'm just saying that your philosophy is changing. If you're saying that you want to put weapons around Lamar, that doesn't happen overnight. So that doesn't happen by drafting them immediately. The only way you put weapons around Lamar to evaluate the contract is by paying for them. They can't afford to pay for them.
I get what you're saying.
Can they replace what they've had there with some other number 2s and number 3s that are out there? Yes. But how much better does that make you? The question was putting better talent around Lamar. Does he do better? That's great, but you can't afford to pay him. You can't afford to pay them now.
So here's what here's kind of summing up my thought process.
Because you spent so much money on defense.
Here's let me sum up my thought process. Do we have a balanced attack on offense?
No.
Okay. What have we said? And I say we because you have said it too. And if you deny this, I'm calling you out and I'm going to go find it. We have both said
We don't
this
have time
team
for that.
This team, in order to be successful, has to have a balanced attack. Correct? Mm-hmm.
It has to have a more balanced attack. It does not need to be 50-50.
It doesn't need to
You
be 50.
cannot get away from your bread and butter of what this team does good.
Okay.
Does the pass game need to be improved? Yes, but it doesn't need to go from 32 to top 10. They need to go from 32 to 20.
Okay. So if that's the case, you can't afford to pay Lamar now because you need to pay to put the weapons around him, to your point. So you need to wait. Put the weapon around him. Get that weapon. Get somebody on a 1-year deal. Get somebody on
They
a trade.
can't afford to do that, though. That's my point. Is that would be great to sign a Kenny Golladay or to sign an Allen Robinson if they were available, but they can't. That has nothing to do with Lamar.
I'm still hoping for
They
Fuller
can't.
with the suspension. Might be able to get a deal.
They just can't do it.
He's definitely the prove it deal.
All right, Fred, I got a question. Can Lamar go to Green Bay and be successful?
No.
It's a different offense.
Hold on. Do you think you could?
I think he could be successful. Would he be an MVP? I don't know.
Could Aaron Rodgers come to Baltimore and be successful?
In this offense?
Yeah.
No.
No, you don't think so?
Because they're not
You don't
playing to
think-
his strengths.
No, but he's got a running game. You got a decent defense, and you have a tight end,
What makes Aaron
and
Rodgers
makes
successful?
players
What
good.
makes Aaron Rodgers successful? It's not his legs.
He can make Prochet look good.
He made Jordy Nelson look good.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'll go with
Yes,
okay.
would the passing game be better? Yes, but would this offense as a whole be better?
I think,
no, I don't.
I think
believe
we're
that.
getting into a lot. It's to your point. To your point, there are a lot of what if scenarios.
Everything is a what if,
Everything is a what
and
if.
everything is a risk. And the Lamar Jackson contract is a risk. I agree with you
a
guys
high risk.
100% on that.
It's a high risk.
And but it's a risk that I'd be willing to take because, again, you don't come across a top 5 franchise quarterback. We've been in existence for how long now? 26 years? 25 years?
Right.
This is our first true franchise quarterback. If you want to say Joe Flacco was a franchise quarterback, okay.
Joe Flacco
we
was
can
paid,
say that.
Joe Flacco was paid like a franchise quarterback, and if you think it
Two
differently, you're wrong.
franchise quarterbacks in our entire 25 years of existence. And Joe Flacco wasn't that great. He won us a Super Bowl. He had a great run there for a little while, but the Ravens that year were this close to not even making the fucking playoffs. They had a good run. That's what got him the Super Bowl. Outside of that, Flacco was mediocre.
Yeah, but we also
Average Joe.
We also seen our team go to Super Bowl without a quarterback.
Sadly, Joe Flacco looks so much better here because of the shit that we had to deal with for so long. Do you not remember the Kyle Bowler days? Do you not remember all those?
Redmond?
Like, it's real, right? Chris Redmond,
Jody
Eric
Case.
Zier, like all these guys. Like, what the fuck? Tony Banks? Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I guess my thought process is, I think, to me, the risk versus reward of just waiting, put the weapons around him, kind of show me that it's either that allows me to do two things. It shows me the evolution of Lamar, and it shows me whether it's Giro or Lamar in 4 games. Right? I'm not asking for half the season. I'm asking for 4 games this year.
But to put the weapons thing around him, you can't just say put the weapons around him when it's not possible. Right
How
now,
do you know it's not possible?
Financially, they can't do it.
If it means you
Unless they unload. If they
they're
unload the
overpaying a lot on
salaries,
defense.
if they unload the defense, if they unload the Calais Campbell and the Brandon Williams, can they afford a Kenny Golladay at that point? Yep. But then they just gutted your defense, which is what we talked about with Jeremy earlier. You vowed that you didn't want to get rid of Brandon Williams, you didn't want to get rid of Calais Campbell, or if you are, you're going to get rid of one of them, and one of them doesn't get you Kenny Golladay.
All right.
That's just my opinion. It's real easy to say put the weapons around him right now, but you just can't financially. If this was a normal year and the cap grew as much as they would be. They could be.
All right.
That's just my opinion.
Fair enough.
COVID.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Time will
Well,
tell.
that went a lot longer than expected. I think the after hours was just as long as the show.
I love it.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you guys.